Here at Prime Time, our job is to hold powerful people accountable. When the rest of the media ignores the bad behavior of the Bidens, the Pelosi's, or the Clintons, and everybody in between, we step in. But we also have to give credit where credit's due. Biden was in Arizona today celebrating a new computer chip factory here in America.
They'll construct a second fab here in Phoenix to build chips, 3 nano chips, the 3 nano chips that are 3 nano, and you know what I'm saying.
You know what he's saying. He's trying to say this is a gut punch to China. Anytime we bring jobs to America and gain control of the chip supply chain, it's a win. But we're dealing with Democrats here. So this $40 billion factory, it's going to take years to finish, and executives are going to skim off probably half the budget. The last thing Biden funded in Phoenix was an anti-racist birdwatching bridge to nowhere. And that's going to take at least 5 years to build and costs $25 million. A semiconductor factory seems a little more complicated. And as with most of these government projects, Democrat donors are probably going to get the contracts. All of a sudden, the $40 billion turns into $85 billion. And we're keeping an eye on the Pelosi family. The Pelosi's love computer chips. They had billions, millions invested in NVIDIA, all set and ready to go for the CHIPS Act to pass. Another perfectly timed trade. But then Prime Time and the unusual whales called them out. They were forced to sell. For the first time in a long time, Paulie P took a loss. And don't forget when Nancy snuck her son, the Fresh Prince of San Francisco, Paulie P. Jr., onto her little plane to Asia. Remember? She took him to check out some of the semiconductor factories in Asia, despite him being about as qualified as Hunter. She tried to hide him in the shadows, but Prime Time spotted him lurking behind some heavy-hitting Malaysians. Nancy didn't want us to know about him. He's on the payroll of 2 lithium mining companies, and Asia just happens to be a lithium gold mine. We know it pays to be a Pelosi. How are they going to use this factory in Arizona to tack on a few more zeros to their fortune? We'll be watching closely. It's good to bring manufacturing back to America, but Biden's trip to Arizona today, pure politics. This is a ribbon-cutting ceremony on a plant that hasn't been built. He's just driving headlines in a battleground state and patting himself on the back for the CHIPS bill. No surprise there. It's part of the game. Both sides do it. But after he burned all that jet fuel to fly across the country, why not stop by the border?
Mr. President, why go to a border state and not visit the border? There's more important things going on. They're going to invest billions of dollars in the new enterprise.
More important things. A photo op at a construction site is more important than meeting with border agents. More important than showing the cartels who's boss. More important than seeing the holes in the southern border firsthand. He could have sent Kamala to the factory, or he could have just hopped on his helicopter. Phoenix is only 100 miles from the border. He could be there in less than an hour. That's about the same distance he travels from D.C. to his Delaware beach house. You know, the house he built a wall around. He's happy to take that trip 2 or 3 times a week. Biden's left Arizona at 2 p.m. local time. He could have hung out for an extra hour or 2. Biden used to complain all the time. He doesn't have enough time to visit the border, remember?
Do you have plans to visit the southern border?
I've been there before, and I haven't. I mean, I know it well. I guess I should go down, but the whole point of it is I haven't had a whole hell of a lot of time to get down.
Today he's got time, but it's just not that important enough. He knows that's not true. When you've done something wrong, it's hard to face it. Just like a kid who won't look you in the eye after getting caught in a lie. And instead of fessing up, the White House digs the hole deeper.
We know the president's never been down to the border. The possible next speaker says that he wants him to go with him, so is he going to?
So look, he's been there. He's been to the border, and since he took office.
When did he go to the border?
Since he took office, the President Biden has been taking action to fix our immigration system and secure our border.
40 years in Washington, never been to the border. 5 million illegals that we know of crossed the border since Biden took over. That's fixing our immigration system. Fentanyl seizures up almost 500%, enough to kill the entire country 10 times over. That's securing the border. That's just what they caught, by the way. Look at how easy it is to get into our country.
Man. Look at this, man! You got a brother tripping! Bro, look at that! Dude. Look at that, bro. This is our government money, bro. Yes, sir. Another one. Another one. Another one. Woo!
Those weren't border agents recording that tape. As far as we know, they never got caught. What was in the backpack? Who knows? There's plenty more videos like that one. Migrants dashing through traffic after jumping into the country. Our country's open to anybody who wants in. Chinese drug smugglers, cartel hitmen, terrorists. All they have to do is get to Mexico and walk north. Doors wide open. Come on in. It's not important to the president. Today's border boycott signals that for the rest of the Biden presidency, he's not going to do a damn thing about it. Let's turn to South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham. This looks like a just big middle finger to the country to get that close to the border and then fly home to Washington, D.C.
Yeah, it's really scary to me. It's dumb, it's dangerous, it's irresponsible to say what he did. There's one of two things going on here, Jesse. He understands the border is broken, that there's enough fentanyl coming across the border on his watch to kill us 10 times over. 90 people on the terrorist watch list have come here and got out into our country, that 5 million illegal immigrants have crossed since he's been president, and he doesn't care to fix it, or he's clueless about what's going on. Either way, it is an irresponsible thing for the president to say and do. It is dereliction of duty, and if he really understands what's going on at the border, and he's not going to go visit and give morale boost to the border agents who are being overrun, he's the worst president. This is going to define his presidency. This was a dumb, dangerous thing to say. So he either knows what's going on and doesn't give a damn, or he's clueless. And I think he's clueless. I don't think he has any idea what's going on at the border. He had no idea what would happen when he withdrew from Afghanistan. We're going to have another terrorist attack on our country coming through a broken southern border because of our withdrawal from Afghanistan. He has no idea what's going on at the border.
Yeah, and he's going to blame someone else when a terrorist scurries across and plants some pipe bomb at one of our buildings. What is a U.S. Senator, what can you do to force his hand on border security?
Number one, when we take the House, I met with Jim Jordan today, come up with a border security plan that eliminates asylum claims in America. Why are so many coming here? If they get 1 foot in the country, they claim asylum, they never get deported. Stop making asylum claims in our country. You have to apply outside of our country. Finish the wall. We can come up with a plan to deal with the fentanyl problem, with a broken border. We can drive the narrative because we have the House and challenge Democrats in the Senate to vote against a border security plan. I just want to say this again. I don't believe President Biden understands what's going on at the border. I think he's clueless, because if he did understand what was going on at the border and wouldn't go down there to do something about it, he deserves to be impeached.
You're saying the president, because he's been derelict in his job as executing the duties as commander-in-chief, could face impeachment for not securing the southern border?
I think this is criminally negligent by the DHS leadership. They're allowing drugs to flow in our country to kill thousands of Americans every year. They're allowing terrorists to come in our country, and they're doing nothing to fix it. So I think it's dereliction of duty by the commander-in-chief to allow this to happen and not make corrective action. I think it's irresponsible for him not to visit the border and talk to the agents firsthand about what's going on. Why is he not going? Apparently he doesn't want to know what's going on.
Well, he told those other guys that were caught not whipping the other border crossers, he told them to go have desk duty. I mean, that's why he doesn't want a picture of him next to border agents, because his base will go nuts.
Joe Biden has surrendered the border to drug cartels and criminal elements, and terrorists are coming through that border. It's a matter of time till they kill a bunch of us if we don't make corrective action. The only time he gets involved on border issues is to go after the Border Patrol. the Republican Party needs to put together a plan in January of next year, pass it through the House, and challenge Democrats up for election in 2024 to either be with us or against us. The President of the United States, when it comes to the southern border, has surrendered it. He's derelict in his duty, and I don't think he has a clue of the threats we face as a nation from withdrawing from Afghanistan. If he had a clue, he wouldn't have done it. And to not do something about the border, giving all the facts we've just talked about on your show, what could you say other than dereliction of duty?
He has waved the white flag. Do you think he's not being briefed? I mean, this is a national security issue. You're not having guys with medals come and brief him and show him footage of this attack on the border?
This is the key question. Who has told him, and what have they told him? Has he been informed that there's more fentanyl coming across the border than any time in history? It's up by 400-something%, enough to kill everybody 10 times over. Is he aware of the fact that we've had 90 people on the terrorist watch list come through the border, evade detection? Is he aware of the fact that 5 million people have come across the border illegally with no end in sight? If he knows that and he does nothing about it, then he is derelict in his duty. If he doesn't know that, the people around him are derelict in their duty. Here's what I think. I think the man is clueless.
Yeah.
I don't think he has a damn idea at all about what's going on at the border, because to know about it, you would want to do something about it.
I'm in complete agreement. Senator Lindsey Graham, thanks for joining us as always.
Thank you.
A wannabe cop killer on the loose in Philly, and now business owners are taking matters into their own hands. When you live in Democrat cities, you're on your own, especially in my hometown of Philly. City's gone to hell in a handbasket, shattering crime records year after year. Philly police are still searching for this lowlife who walked right up to a parking enforcement officer, broad daylight, shot him in the head, point blank range. And by the grace of God, somehow, the officer miraculously survived the execution attempt, and he's expected to recover. But that doesn't change the fact that this lunatic should have been behind bars. We reached out for comment to the DA, Uncle Larry. No response. He's too busy fighting off a recall. And crickets from the Fetterman team as well. Yeah, we did reach out to both Fettermans, Giselle and John. Nothing. In fact, the NYPD is also jumping in, asking the public to identify the suspect because they think he was involved in another shooting at a Bronx gas station just 3 days ago. That's why these gas station owners feel like there's no other choice but to bring out the big guns. Watch.
Hired security strapped with AR-15s or shotguns, standing guard and walking the property of this North Philly gas station and convenience store. Corey Berry says she's on board with it.
If you're trying to get gas, you live in a bad area, and the only place is here, and they're getting robbed all the time, I mean, I support the owner.
Over the past few weeks, he says his store was trashed by young people, an ATM stolen out of the store, and he says his car was vandalized while parked at the store.
They're forcing us to hire the security, high-level security, state level. I am fearful for my safety of my employee as well as my nice neighborhood.
It's no wonder why the small business owner would resort to hiring private security. He's doing this to save his own life and the lives of his employees and his customers. So we reached out to the man who's gone above and beyond to help small businesses feel safe. Chief Andre Boyer, former Philly police officer who's now the owner of SITE, the private security group made up of former Philly PD. All right, so Chief, you got guys, looks like you got a guy behind you. What kind of effect does this have on this gas station?
What kind of effect it has?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm pulling up to this gas station and I see you there, I'm feeling pretty safe.
Yeah, well, in the beginning, it wasn't that way. A lot of people didn't understand why we were here. And then the following week, when people realized what happened here, a lot of people got on board and they said, hey, I love coming here now. This should have been done. This should be done throughout the city. In fact, one lady, actually, she works for Wawa. She's a manager. She said, we need you at Wawa.
Are you willing
this is what we need.
Are you
She
willing
said,
to use your team at SITE to provide security for Wawa as well?
Yes, but let me explain something to you about Pennsylvania sites. We're not security. We're Pennsylvania state agents. And we're different from security. Security guards, those are the guys that stand at the door or stand around and walk through the mall. When something goes down, they pick up their cell phones and call 911. That's not going to happen with us. We take action. We can make arrests. And that's what's going to happen if that person, with my client, commits a crime. He or she is going to get arrested. And if I have to use force, I will use force.
What kind of things were happening at these gas stations that made this owner give you guys a call?
Philadelphia is off the chain. Right now, statistics say 62% of thefts, robberies, and the biggest one of all, carjackings, happen at the pump. Now, for this owner, the last straw was when he got hit 3 weeks ago. They pulled up to the front of the gas station and got out, walked in with a hand cart, picked up his ATM machine, Mac machine, and went outside and put it in his car and drove off like it was nothing. And the second thing that brought him to, and the second thing was when he, this area was flooded with drug dealers selling drugs in front of this store. So what he tried to do himself is to basically say, hey, you guys can't be here. I don't want you on my property. You're scaring away my customers. Each time he told them that, they vandalized his car. Each time. So I guess he said enough is enough. And his words, you got to fight fire with fire sometimes.
What do you think's wrong with Philly? Is it the lack of political action? Is it the criminal drug traffickers? Is it the culture? What the hell is going on?
The lack of political action. We have Uncle Larry, the DA, who is not a DA. He's acting like a social worker. When we people elected him in office, we wanted a prosecutor. We didn't want someone who's going to be kumbaya. That's what his office says. On his door says prosecutor. Prosecute the criminals. That is what you're supposed to do, not give them the keys to the city. Now, you have a mayor who's doing the same thing. For 4 years, we listen to them keep coming to town hall meetings telling us, oh, we've come up with a great idea. We are going to spend $2.5 million to do this and do that, and we're going to give it to this program to help kids make T-shirts. We're going to give it to this program to clean up the block. None of that has to do with violent crime. None of that has to do with guns on the street. None of that has to do with anything taking guns off the street. 82% of the money that the city gives away to these programs, and I call them fake programs, you can do the statistics. None of those programs have taken a gun off the street. None of them. But if you give money to programs like mine, at least you'll have people patrolling the streets. At least you'll have safer neighborhoods. Put the money where it should be used to protect the people of the city of Philadelphia and not the criminals.
Chief, you're doing more, your program, than any of these elected officials. And I salute you, and that's probably the safest pump in the city right now. And I wish there was more of you guys out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Up next, a whistleblower from the Wuhan lab joins Primetime. And later, the media says Shark Week is racist. Believe it or not, it's been 3 years since a bat virus leaked out of a sloppy lab in Wuhan and wiped out millions of us. But it feels like no one's really in a particular rush to get to the bottom of it. Fauci's been trying to close the book and say there was never anything funky going on.
You know, there's this debate of whether it's a lab leak from something that was going on in a Chinese lab or a natural occurrence. It could have been something like studying a virus that they got out of the environment and perhaps having it leaked out into the community. I don't think that's what happened.
It could have been, I don't think, whatever, 6 million dead. But there's evidence everywhere that this Wuhan lab they were monkeying around with the viruses. And people like Fauci had their fingerprints all over it. Fauci's NIH was handing out millions to this group, Eco Health Alliance, to fund these risky projects. They were even giving Chinese scientists like the Bat Lady lessons on Frankensteining these viruses. It's called gain of function. But Fauci has always denied it happened.
Do you still support funding of the NIH funding of the lab in Wuhan?
NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute. He keeps talking about gain of function. This has been evaluated multiple times by qualified people to not fall under the gain of function definition.
We haven't even figured out what happened with COVID, but Fauci's still keeping the spending spree going. Just in October, he sent more money to the same group, EcoHealth Alliance. Why are we still funding gain of function? Can we hit the pause button, please? Dr. Andrew Huff's a scientist who actually worked inside the Wuhan lab, and he says COVID was man-made. He's also the author of the new book, The Truth About Wuhan. So COVID is man-made. You're 1,000% positive?
Oh, I'm 1,000% positive. And there's one thing I'd like to clear up here real quickly. I never stepped foot in China. I never actually worked at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. I was an executive at EcoHealth Alliance, and we funded the Wuhan Institute of Virology and managed the relationship and all the work that went on there.
So you funded it and you managed the work there. So you had to have known what was going on. What tells you that this thing was man-made?
Well, it's simple. It's all in the documents that I have in my possession, which I released on Twitter today. My handle's AGHUFF, AG Huff on Twitter. Your audience and listeners can go download those documents and look at them yourself. In the Understanding the Risk of Bat Coronavirus Emergence proposal funded by Dr. Anthony Fauci, it very clearly lays out the gain-of-function work that we were doing at that laboratory and also with UNC with Dr. Ralph Barrick. There's no question. And what the big psychological operation of the cover-up has been for the U.S. government in this whole debacle is trying to confuse people with this complex virology. And what I do in my book is I explain this very simply in layman's terms so a high school student can understand what happened and how this went south.
So even I can understand it. I appreciate that. So why are they covering this up? I mean, if they did it, own it.
Well, I mean, look at this. I mean, millions of people are dead. A bunch of different, I mean, this sounds like an Alex Jones conspiracy theory, but a lot of very wealthy people, high wealth individuals, and corporations around the planet took advantage of this man-made disaster to restrict freedoms, our way of life. I mean, they're using it to exert power and control. And, you know, why not take advantage of a good disaster? I mean, that's sort of the old saying here. But really, people like Dr. Anthony Fauci, my old boss, Dr. Peter Daszak, Dr. Ralph Barrick, they deserve to be in prison for what they did. I actually raised concerns about the work that we were doing in China when I worked at EcoHealth Alliance. And, you know, this is not a new story. That's a funny thing. I've been trying to get this story out for over 14 or 15 months now. And finally, you know, the mainstream media, you guys caught wind of my story, which I'm very grateful for. But this is not a new story. I mean, that's the whole craziness behind this. I actually came forward, like I said, 15 months ago, and I've been trying to get the story to the mainstream. I'm glad I'm here now, but you know, they're terrified. They're terrified of the fallout from this.
Why do you think Fauci should be in prison?
Well, okay, so if you look at U.S. policy and law around what this is, I mean, it's a number of direct violations of U.S. policy from NIH in gain-of-function research. So what they did is they actually circumvented a domestic ban on gain-of-function research by exporting the research to China. And I discuss why in my book, which is even sort of crazier. I believe that was so that they could collect intelligence on the Wuhan Institute of Virology. I actually used to have a top secret clearance working at Sandia National Laboratories in biowarfare, bioterrorism. So I know more things about this, which I can't talk about. But it very much looks like we're exchanging or trading advanced biotechnology to the Chinese so we could snoop on their lab. And this is where it gets, you know, even, I like to ask people this question. Do the Chinese need $600,000 of money which they've loaned to us? No, the Chinese do not need $600,000. They don't need $5 million. But the thing that the Chinese really needed was our advanced biotechnology. So, you know, here we are. We gave them this advanced biotechnology. They worked on this gain-of-function research in subpar, substandard environment in their laboratory, and it escaped.
So we were using these grants as an excuse to spy on the bioweapons component of these laboratories. That's, wow.
That's what I hypothesize. I think there's a lot of strength to that argument. And the only way we're going to get bottom of this, question everything I say, please do. But Congress needs to launch a full investigation into the origin of this virus. And I believe firmly that all the facts I lay out in my book will point everyone in the right direction, that this is definitely a lab leak. The only question is how, when, and why.
All right, The Truth About Wuhan. Everybody go check out Dr. Huff's book. We really appreciate you telling the truth on the show. Proof that the virus sprang out of a sloppy lab can no longer be ignored. But Fauci still says he's clean. Or actually, he's using the classic, "I don't recall" line. In fact, Fauci said, "I don't recall" 174 times last week in court, where he was being deposed over his role in working with big tech to cover up the lab leak story. In a newly released transcript, Fauci says he gets a lot of emails, can't really remember anything, and doesn't really recall if Twitter banned tweets he didn't like. Oh, and remember the Twitter account that mocked Fauci? You know, the one that he got taken down? He says he vaguely remembers it. Dr. Fauci, under oath, says he was concerned that all this misinformation out there would interfere with him saving the country. And said we shouldn't blame the Chinese. That kind of wild accusation is just mean. He actually admitted his doctors were all really impressed with the way China was masking up and locking down. And if you didn't like what was coming out of China, we were guilty of spreading misinformation, and you needed to be censored. But we did get one interesting nugget from this Fauci deposition. Turns out Fauci's daughter, Allie Fauci, hey Allie, was actually working for Twitter while they were censoring tweets the good doctor didn't like. We hope this isn't the same daughter. Remember the wedding Fauci couldn't attend because he caught COVID? Well, sources tell Primetime Allie Fauci loves bringing the heat. She enjoys, quote, "tight hugs and popping, locking, and dropping it better than you can." Yeah. And she just happened to be on Twitter's payroll during the pandemic. So Big Pharma and Big Tech were all paying the Fauci family. What a coincidence. Eric Schmitz, the Missouri AG, who watched Fauci squirm during that deposition, and he joins me now. What was his body language like when you were peppering him with questions he's probably never been forced to ask before to answer?
Well, I think one thing that was telling is that in this 7-hour deposition, the court reporter sneezed, and Dr. Fauci wanted her to wear a mask. So think about that for a second. In November of 2022, this was the mentality of the guy in charge of locking down the entire country and destroying lives and livelihoods. It was a very telling insight into his mentality. But you covered it as, you know, his daughter worked at Twitter. You know, he said, I can't recall 174 times. This is coming from the guy who claimed to be the all-knowing, all-powerful Oz, right? Who was the science, according to him. But his memory lapsed when he was asked tough questions.
When you asked him about the fact that he was trying to cover up this lab leak, I mean, you have smoking gun emails where his people are saying it probably looks like it came from a lab, and then he's like, let's not go there. What did he have to say for himself?
Well, in fact, Jesse, he was privy to about 5 or 6 drafts of an article that came out that started out very open to this idea, which is the most plausible theory, it came from the lab, to dismissing it entirely, and basically anybody who committed heresy was to be cast out and called a conspiracy theorist. And so he was part and parcel of all of this. Of course, you know, he doesn't recall specifically any particular email. But look, here's the thing. This guy was the high priest of COVID tyranny. And when they were sending out those smoke signals to carry out his orders, people were censored and lives and livelihoods were ruined. I mean, it's a disgrace.
It really is a disgrace, and we got to get to the bottom of it. We expect the Republicans in the House to do that, and we appreciate you deposing the doctor, because it's the only way we're going to get answers. Thank you very much. The Washington Post thinks this is racist.
Wow! My word!
You don't need to tell me winter's coming. It's cold, windy, might be buried in snow. So as we're bundled up trying to survive the bad weather, no one can blame you for daydreaming about the warmer days of summer. Sunshine, beaches, and of course, sharks. Here at Primetime, we love sharks. We spend all summer covering the ancient predators and even learned a thing or two about how to fight them off. If we do encounter a shark and it's hungry, and we can sense that it's very hungry, And do we poke it in the eyeball? Do we gouge it? Do I take a oar, snap it in half, and stick it in the mouth of the shark so when it bites down, it can't swallow me?
I would say, Jesse, if you find yourself swimming in the water and you know there's a shark there, turn around and swim right at it. You are not going to be able to outswim it, so you may as well swim right at it.
Not sure if that was real advice or that expert was just trying to get me eaten. Either way, we're not the only ones obsessed with sharks. A staple of the summer season has always been Discovery Channel's Shark Week.
It's hard for me to move. Dude, the shark's biting my cage.
Whoa! Incredible breach!
From the pool.
Wow! My word!
It's nature in its most raw and dangerous. Can't miss TV. Who doesn't love Shark Week? Well, the Washington Post. The Post is just called Shark Week racist, saying it lacks diversity, and most importantly, features too many white guys named Mike. What's the Post's problem with white guys named Mike? Well, we have white Mikes here at primetime. What do you want to do about it? Primetime wouldn't be a success without our two white Mikes. So back off, Bezos. Speaking of which, maybe the Post should look at their boss before they start calling Shark Week racist. Bezos is a white guy. Is he not allowed to talk about sharks now? Or how about Frederick Ryan Jr., the Post's publisher and CEO, another white guy? Is he not allowed to talk about sharks? So if too many white guys are talking about sharks, what about the sharks themselves? The great white shark, is he the grand wizard of the ocean? Clay Travis is the founder of Outkick and co-host of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show. Clay, when I saw this headline, I thought it was The Onion.
It is amazing. And just follow me here, Jesse. Wouldn't it be more racist to put minorities in cages and let sharks try to bite them? Are there tons of minorities like, you know what, there's too many white guys getting attacked by sharks in Shark Week. We got to have more equality, more equity. I want in the cage to get attacked. That seems like it would actually be racist. And also, how about the fact that the Washington Post is covering this, Jesse? But they basically didn't cover the entire Twitter document drop that proved that collusion and big tech and censorship, they can't get around to that. But a study comes out about racism in Shark Week, and they're like, we got to put every reporter on this. We got to make sure that we don't miss out on this incredible opportunity to bring this story to the masses. I also appreciate that when your crew saw this story, they said, oh, we got to make sure Clay's in to talk about the racist Shark Week. Because I love Shark Week too, Jesse. I'm terrified. I totally expect that I'm going to be killed by a shark one day. But in the meantime, of all the ways to go, I mean, that's kind of a badass way to go, right?
Would you swim towards the shark, as the expert suggested?
I saw that advice. That seems like awful advice. I liked your idea about breaking the oar and trying to, like, keep him from... I think the shark's probably strong enough to break the oar. But I think you have to go with the eye gouge. Go gill grab and just try to rake, right, with the gill grab. But I don't have a great strategy, but I have thought about it. In the same way that I think about it when I'm down in Florida, if alligators attack, like as a dad, and I know you're in the process of fatherhood, congratulations.
Thank you.
And you sit around once you become a dad thinking of ways that you can save your children in the event of a wild animal attack all the time. I mean, it's like a constant obsession. And so I've thought
I want to
about
get attacked by sharks with you, Clay, because you seem to have put a lot of thought into it. You get the gills, I'll get the eye gouging. The guy that was assigned to this is Daniel Wu. Can we see what Daniel Wu looks like? There's Daniel Wu. So he says too many white guys are talking sharks. All right? So if you're concerned, Daniel, maybe change the channel. Or if you, it looks like he's an Asian guy, I don't know what he is, maybe he could talk about sharks on Discovery.
How about he goes into the shark tank, into the shark, cave or whatever you want to call it, and like right here. Is this something that everybody of all races is? I don't want to be in there, Jesse. I'll be honest with you. But if there's tons of minorities who feel like racism is keeping them out of the cage, put them in the cage, let them go in too.
All right. Clay Travis, protect yourself from sharks, bears. He's your man. Thank you, Clay. Coming up, the suicide net for the Golden Gate Bridge might cost more than the bridge itself, only in California. Back when America was America, California was the land of opportunity, innovation, and hope. People traveled far and wide to reinvent themselves and create the American dream. And one of the state's great shining beacons of American ingenuity was the Golden Gate Bridge.
May 28, 1937, opening day. And so, the work is completed. The bridge that pessimists said could not be built has been built. The fact that men who never saw a blueprint or drove a rivet were so deeply proud of the accomplishment proved that all men are builders at heart, conquerors of the impossible.
At the time, it was the longest suspension bridge in the world. It was an architectural wonder. It only took them 4 years to complete. 4 years. The project was under budget, and the bridge became an iconic symbol of California's greatness. But California's changed, and the bridge, and for what it stands for, has changed with it. The state's been plagued with out-of-control government spending, homelessness, drug addiction, and re-enter the Golden Gate Bridge. Back in 2018, the state started construction on suicide netting to protect wannabe jumpers from taking their lives. And a lot of people in San Francisco do want to kill themselves. It's a noble project and probably a necessary one, but it quickly unraveled. The suicide net was supposed to cost $76 million and supposed to be done in 2 years. And now, 4 years after it began the project, it has ballooned to $400 million. And it won't even be done until the end of next year. And if you'd adjust for inflation, the suicide net for the Golden Gate Bridge is going to cost as much as the bridge itself. It makes sense because it takes $2 million to install a single-stall public bathroom in San Francisco. And like everything else in California, this Golden Gate debacle was caught up in litigation, and the project stalled out. They built the bridge in 4 years, and now, 85 years later, they can't finish a net in the same amount of time. And in related news, we have another major victory for primetime. The city of San Francisco has killed its killer robots program. This was announced moments ago at the San Francisco Board of Supervisors meeting. It's a huge reversal from last week's vote, which gave the local police full authority to have robots shoot and kill suspects in warranted situations, whatever that means. According to the Associated Press, the police said they had no plans to arm the robots with guns, but wanted the ability to put explosives on them in extraordinary circumstances. My goodness. Well, back to the drawing board. So kudos to the many primetime fans over on the San Francisco Board of Supervisors who did the impossible and terminated the Terminators. Little lesson in umbrella etiquette. When it rains, short people need to make sure they're aware of their umbrella. Us taller people are used to having short people get out of the way on the sidewalks. But when it rains, the short people hold their umbrellas and they just look like this. And they don't see where they're going. They don't notice they should be getting out of the way for the taller people. And they will steamroll you with an umbrella and go straight through you. Like I'm the Cowboys' offensive line. I don't like it. See some text messages. Judy from Great Falls, Virginia. You booked Lindsey Graham to talk about illegal immigration. He's been in government since 1995 and done absolutely nothing. And we're going to give Lindsey your email address, and he's after you. Robert from Swarsville, Pennsylvania. Are you serious with Swarsville? Have it. Oh, they want to put a parking. No, they want to put an ice cream truck at the border wall. Zip. There goes POTUS. Andy from Collierville, Tennessee. Chief Boyer is my new favorite badass. Mine too. Kim from West Virginia. Are you trying something new with your shirt tonight? Your collar looks smaller. I didn't pick up the dry cleaning. I should have. I had an old collar. I haven't worn in a while. It's one of those English spread collars. I get it. It won't happen again. Mike from Florida. Hey, my name's Mike. Can I work for you? Well, we already have 2 white mics. I think that's our quota. The Washington Post said, any more white mics? We have a lawsuit on our hands. That's all for tonight. DVR the show if you can figure it out. I can't. Tucker Carlson's up next, and always remember, I'm Waters, and this is my world.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. It's funny about profound change. You always imagine when things change radically, there are going to be troops in the streets and you're going to know this is the pivot point, this is the revolution. But that's most of the time not what actually happens. Usually there's some guy in a suit and tie speaking soothing words. And you don't even know that everything is changing when it is. That's the case with what happened on June 15th, 2012, a decade ago. On that day, Barack Obama walked into the Rose Garden and announced, full of self-confidence and coolness, Obama announced that his administration decided actually not to deport millions of illegal immigrants. Henceforth, Barack Obama explained, these millions of people would no longer be identified, in fact, as illegal aliens or even breakers of federal law, which everyone had assumed they were. No. Going forward, they would be called dreamers. So illegal aliens are bad, of course, but dreamers are good. And because to control language is to control reality, these dreamers would no longer be subject to federal law. They'd be above federal law because you can't ban a dream. That's effectively the case that Obama made. Now, what Obama did that day was, strictly speaking, illegal. Several courts later ruled that it's illegal, obviously. Only kings and legislatures get to change the law. American presidents do not have that power and never have. But no one stopped Barack Obama from doing this, so he did it anyway. And the effect, the intended effect, was immediate. Foreign nationals flood into the United States. Over the decade before Obama's Dreamer Rose Garden announcement, about 8,000 unaccompanied minors every year. So these are specific problems that have prevented millions of Americans from having families, from reproducing, as Chuck Schumer just said. And you could fix them if you tried, but they're not trying. Instead, the solution is to replace the people who aren't reproducing with millions of new people from other countries. That's not a racist conspiracy theory. Chuck Schumer just said it. However many undocumented there are here, Schumer added. So as a political matter, what is this? Well, you're hearing a lot about threats to democracy. This is an actual threat to democracy. This is an actual effort to disenfranchise American voters. It's an attempt to replace their vote with a new electorate. So this is incredibly dark. And it's not a referendum on the people coming here, most of whom are, well, they want to be here, so that says something good about them. No. This is a measure of the intent of the people in charge, the malice behind what they're doing. So it's hard to believe this could become law. This could be codified since Republicans just took over the House. Oh, but it could be in the lame duck session, which does not represent the recently expressed will of voters last month. A month ago, voters cast their ballots and they said, we would like a Republican House, and they got one. But that's all about to be short-circuited. New reporting suggests that Democrats and several Republicans are working on a deal to pass mass amnesty for millions of illegal aliens before the new Congress can be seated. Kevin McCarthy, the incoming House Speaker, has promised not to hold a vote for any immigration bill until the border is secure, because it would be insane to do otherwise. And yet several Republican members of the Senate are trying to pass a mass amnesty before the new Republican Congress is seated next month. Leading that effort, and should become famous for this, is Tom Tillis, the Republican senator of North Carolina, joined by Democrat Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona. According to Axios, between 10 and 12 Republican senators could join this plan. And that would include names you're probably familiar with: Susan Collins of Maine, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, Mitt Romney of Utah, and as we said, Tom Tillis of North Carolina. Then several retiring senators, Rob Portman, Roy Blunt, Richard Burr, are also being courted to support the bill. Imagine someone who's on his way out of Congress in days will be codifying a law that will change the country forever. So how are they justifying this? Well, clearly their donors want it, right? Because cheap labor is always the justification for everything. It's a short-sighted view. Tom Tillis is saying this is okay because it will only offer amnesty to the dreamers, Barack Obama's dreamers. Illegal migrants supposedly came to this country as young people. So by offering amnesty to dreamers, what will happen next? Well, what happened last time? The U.S. Congress will incentivize more foreign nationals to flood into the country. And that's the whole point of it. It's why Obama did it a decade ago. So what will happen to our economy, which is at the verge of a real downturn? Everyone knows that. Well, let's see. The average dreamer is 28 years old. 28 years old. The average income, the median income of dreamers is $26,000. That's far lower than the median income of Americans. So that's not an attack on anybody. It's only a simple observation. If the country is getting poorer, you probably don't want a lot more poverty imported. Again, why is that untrue? Well, it is true, and everyone knows it's true, and no one has the brass to say it out loud, but it's real. And by the way, we have no idea how many dreamers or other illegal aliens are in this country. The Biden administration has been working with the government of Mexico to hide those numbers for 2 years now from the public. So much for your democracy. The Center for Immigration Studies just exposed this in one of the most important investigations from the border in a long time. Watch.
After this short bus drive from a Mexican government shelter across from Calexico, California, Mexico's Immigration Service will hand them over to their American counterparts at an official port of entry, with temporary legal status papers already in their folders. Once CBP processes them in, they're all released to begin permanent lives working in American cities of their choice. These ones and thousands more entering the same way all along the U.S.-Mexican border won't have illegally crossed a river, won't have hiked through brush, and won't have paid thousands to cartel smugglers. Maybe most importantly to the Biden administration, they surely won't end up in the historically swollen, politically problematic illegal crossing statistics. Instead, Biden's DHS legalized these people before they could commit the illegal act they intended when they left home. The U.S. Customs and Border Protection pre-approved all of them while they were still in Mexico.
So that was, what's the word for that? That'd be immigration fraud being committed by the Biden administration, hiding the numbers so you don't realize how many people are coming into your country illegally. You have no role in this whatsoever. Now keep that in mind when you learn that the Tom Tillis lame duck bill will include, quote, $25 to $40 billion for border security. Now, that's actually a lot, not as much as we're giving to Ukraine, because of course their border is a lot more important than ours. Shut up, racist. But it is billions more than Donald Trump asked for to build the border wall. And at the time, senators in both parties said that was just way too expensive and racist. And people just build taller ladders, okay. But now the same group is fine with $40 billion for border security. Why is that? Because they know it's fake. They know it's fake. You can build any structure you want, but if the officials manning the gates, like on January 6th, just to open the doors, it's meaningless. And of course, Tom Tillis knows that, to his eternal shame. How out of it is Tom Tillis? Well, watch Tom Tillis, who clearly has no grounding in the physical reality of America 2022, tell you that letting all these people in, giving them citizenship, is a good idea because really what we're importing is computer scientists and engineers. Watch Tom Tillis.
I've tried to tell anyone who thinks that we just need to find more computer scientists, more data analysts, more people with advanced degrees from the U.S. population, that they need to wake up and recognize if we want our economy to continue to grow, if we want to continue to build on this great economy, that we've got to look to legal immigration as a critical part of fulfilling our workforce needs and really growing our innovation economy.
So that's just a word salad of phrases Tom Tillis doesn't understand, of course. But think about that. In the last 2 years, thanks to COVID and the manufactured response to it in this country, our public education system has completely collapsed. Kids are not being educated. We're not producing programmers, partly because of policies that Tom Tillis stood by and allowed to be enacted under COVID. But rather than fix that, we need to legalize millions of dreamers and give them citizenship. So if you really wanted a lot of computer programmers, there are a lot of them around the world, you would make an active attempt to identify them and import them. And then you could tell us why. But to let in people without high school educations by the millions because we need more computer programmers, now you're just lying to us, Tom Tillis. How stupid do you think we are? Pretty stupid, apparently. So what's the border actually look like? Well, Charlie the Duff, our reporter friend from Michigan, formerly the New York Times, has been to the border recently, spent a lot of time there, caught a lot on video. Here's some footage that tells you who's actually coming over.
In the last 2 years, how many people have made their way into the United States?
I think last year was over 2 million. And the year before that, I think just under 2 million. And then you have the unknown number of people that are gotaways that we have no idea that got away. And then you look at the people that are overstaying visas. I mean, that 11 million number of illegals in the United States is just a fantasy.
New York complains about 1,000 a month. And we have 1,000 a day, 2,000 a day.
Yeah, this right here is probably 350 right here. In the meantime, probably a mile downstream, they're probably running a bunch of dope because all our people are tied up over here with this. That's why they send them big groups.
So most Americans, because this is a pretty big country, have no idea the scale of this. It's been going on for 2 years, and it will completely change this country forever, and it's continuing, and nobody is doing anything about it. And no one seems upset about it. Is Tom Tillis upset about this? No, computer programmers, reading his stupid libertarian talking points from 1996. We're going to have a lot more footage from Charlie LaDuff from the border, and it shows you what's actually happening there. And a lot of people crossing are nice people with families that just want to work and hang drywall, and that's great, and everyone supports that. Quite a few of them, though, are drug smugglers. Actually, that's true. This is all being orchestrated by the cartels, and some of them wind up killing Americans.
I have 5 motion-activated cameras. I've got 2 way back that way and 3 back in the ranch here. It's a very poor sample because I've had over 100 trails coming through the ranch. And so 5 over 100 is only 5%. And on those 5 cameras, between February and October, 2,500 images. An intelligence officer with the Border Patrol told me that he believes 20% are carrying drugs. On this ranch, we've been here 35 years now. It's a wonderful ranch, except we are very ticked off that all these drug packers are coming through my ranch to poison our American people.
So the closer you get to the border, and this is true of Republicans and Democrats, Hispanics, whites, blacks, none of that matters. Any American who's close to the border is horrified by what's going on there. So the only way that you could support this is by intentionally ignoring what's happening there, like Tom Tillis is and Lisa Murkowski and Joe Biden and all the rest. Today, our Peter Doocy asked Biden, who's going to be in the area soon, are you going to go see the border while you're down there? Watch this.
Why go to a border state and not visit the border? Because there's a more important thing going on. They're going to invest billions of dollars in a new enterprise.
There are more important things going on, right? What's actually happening is the Biden administration ended the policies that would have stopped this flood of unaccompanied minors at the border, and now they want to make the problem even worse, and they're doing it for a reason. They're telling you what the reason is. You're not allowed to notice, but it doesn't make it any less true. This is real. This is happening. No one's stopping it. Republicans are colluding to allow it to continue. Stephen Miller is a senior advisor, was for 4 years to President Trump. He implemented many of the policies that the Biden people canceled. He joins us tonight. Stephen Miller, thank you so much for coming on. So it's a little, when you look at pictures of what's actually happening at the border, when you see the numbers, 5 million people in 2 years, totally changing the American population, how could Tom Tillis and Murkowski and Romney, how could they support giving an amnesty in the face of that?
Because they support unlimited immigration into this country. They believe fundamentally, as a philosophic matter, that Americans aren't up to it. Americans can't cut it. The American middle class is no good. Its values are useless. Its history is useless. Its aspirations mean nothing to them, like the dirt that you walk on the ground. So of course you need to bring in new people. And I would say that on the Dreamer point specifically, it is the most insidious form of amnesty that any country could ever consider. Because the message to the world is, smuggle a child into this country, and that child will be rewarded with U.S. citizenship. And what you will have, and what we're already seeing, is a wave of illegal minors being brought into this country of biblical proportions. Just to put this into numerical perspective, in 2020, when we used Title 42 to adopt a 100% repatriation policy for minors, we achieved the lowest levels of minor crossings since pre-Obama amnesty times. You talked about DACA in your opening. So before that, no one had ever seen numbers that were that low of minors before this whole thing started. Then Biden came in, and despite warnings from Border Patrol, he said that minors are exempt from Title 42, the automatic expulsion policy. We have now seen almost every single month under Biden, let this sink in, almost every single month under Biden, the number of unaccompanied minors who have entered the country is higher than every single month in American history before Biden. Every month, almost without exception, is higher than any month in all of history before Biden. And in that environment, Sinema and Tillis and others are saying, let us codify the idea that smuggled minors are Americans for life. It's insane, Tucker.
Well, I mean, it's encouraging human trafficking, Tom Tillis. That's what you're doing, and you know that's what you're doing, but you're doing it anyway. Stephen Miller, appreciate your coming on. Thank you.
Thank you.
So a remnant from last month's midterms, the final Senate race, the runoff election in Georgia today. Polls have closed, so of course we go with great pleasure to our friend Bill Hemmer, who's at the big board for us. Hey, Bill.
Hey, Tucker, good evening to you. Got a bit of a mixed picture right now. It's early on the night, frankly, and it looks like it could be a long night. This is the current runoff here. The difference, Warnock leading Walker by about 100,000 votes. The difference between the two candidates, you got about half the vote in accounted for. Now, I want our viewers to know that we're talking about small percentages here and there. As we go around this map in the rural areas of Georgia, you see a point gained here, a point lost there. So these are small margins, but they matter in the end because 4 weeks ago, Tucker, this was the outcome. Warnock beat Walker by less than a point, okay? So that's how thin this race could be throughout the night. So that was 4 weeks ago during the midterm. Let's come back to the runoff tonight and show you a few things that we've noticed, especially the rural counties right now. Can't say it empirically, but a county like Franklin County up here in the Northeast. What I would direct our viewers to see is that Walker right now, with just about 99% of the estimated vote in, is about 86.6% in that county. So where was he percentage-wise 4 weeks ago? Watch it here. He was at 84.7. So in that county, he's outperforming by about 2 points. Now, conversely, I could find other news. Let me clear that off here. And come down to, if I can get it right here, yes, okay, this is Putnam, and then this is Baldwin County. A lot of people consider this to be a bellwether. Why is that? Because it tends to go the way the rest of the state goes. So right now, not all the votes in. And again, a lot of the early vote is counted first. That's the early in-person vote. It trends blue, okay? So we just want to caution viewers throughout the night as we go as well. Remember, 4 weeks ago, Warnock had the lead. Walker caught him around 10 o'clock Eastern, then Warnock went ahead around midnight that night. So right now, Warnock's at 50%. Let's go back 4 weeks ago and see Warnock was at, okay, so Warnock has gained about a point. And I could go throughout this entire map, Tucker, and show you good news for Walker and good news for Warnock. And again, right now, it's too close to call. A lot of these blue counties around Atlanta, that's where your population lives. Fulton County ranks 1 out of 159. You've only got half the vote in, so you've got a lot of votes to go here in Fulton County throughout the night. Warnock, pretty good number. You expect it to be that high, and I'm going to show you, Tucker, 4 weeks ago in Fulton County, he wound up with 73.5% of the vote. So then, Warnock's got Walker's got some time as we go through the votes in Fulton County, Atlanta. So you can mix and match and find some good news for either party right now. We'll see how it goes throughout the night. Tucker, back to you.
49% counted. Bill Hemmer, who may be there for a while. Great to see you, Bill. So Elon Musk promised more documents from Twitter over the weekend. Remember that first dump came on Friday, but then the documents never came. Why is that? A remarkable story, actually. Twitter's general counsel, Jim Baker, the former general counsel at the FBI, the guy at the center of Russiagate, appeared to subvert the release of those documents and just got fired a few hours ago from Twitter. Incredible story unfolding now. Details after the break. So we told you on Friday about the internal documents from Twitter that Elon Musk released, gave to Matt Taibbi, who wrote about them, and then they told us, Taibbi and Musk, said that this is just the first batch. You're going to get a lot more in days to come, over the weekend and yesterday. But they never came. That's kind of weird. The deadline came and went. What happened? Well, we learned today what happened. This weekend, Matt Taibbi and Barry Weiss, who's helping him do this reporting, found out that the general counsel of Twitter, that would be the former FBI general counsel, James Baker, had been vetting the documents before Taibbi and Weiss could see them. In other words, removing the ones that might incriminate him or the feds. Apparently, even Elon Musk, who owns Twitter, didn't know this was happening. Now, keep in mind, in case you're looking for evidence of sinister intent, this same Jim Baker was one of the architects of the Russia collusion hoax in 2016. This is the guy who obtained the fraudulent FISA warrants and targeted Michael Flynn, for example. So this afternoon, Elon Musk fired Baker from Twitter. Quote, in light of concerns about Baker's possible role in suppression of information important to the public dialogue, he was exited from Twitter today. An amazing story that just happened. So to make sense of it, we are happy to be joined by Miranda Devine of the New York Post, who's been at the center of the story for over 2 years. Miranda, thank you so much for coming on. What do you make of this?
Hi, Tucker. Well, look, as you and I discussed on Friday night, it was pretty obvious that the Twitter files that had just been released were missing a crucial element, and that was the FBI. So, you know, we surmised that somehow Elon Musk had redacted it, or someone had withheld the information about the FBI's intervention.
May I ask you to pause right there, Miranda? You were the only person who said that, actually. It wasn't me, it was you. You were the first person. You took a look at those documents and you said, someone has taken out the incriminating stuff. And I think you were the only person to catch that. So I just think you deserve credit for it.
Thanks. Well, so the FBI, we knew, had pre-bunked to the social media platforms our story. Before it came out, they told them to expect a pile of Russian disinformation, and Twitter was told by the FBI, we know from Yoel Roth, to expect that it would be in October and would probably refer to Hunter Biden. So we knew that there had to be something about that at Twitter, and yet there wasn't in the Twitter files. And it was pretty obvious who was suppressing that information, who was the person with the biggest motive. It was Twitter's top lawyer, James Baker, who, as you just said, had been the top lawyer at the FBI, the quarterback of the FBI Russia collusion scandal. And he had to leave the FBI because of that, and lo and behold, he shows up at Twitter 5 months before the 2020 election, and lo and behold, one little element did come out in the Twitter files Friday night. It was this one email that had the date and time removed from it, very peculiarly, but it was from James Baker, and it was weighing in on the decision on the morning of October 14, 2020, a few hours after our story came out. And there was James Baker weighing in on the side of censorship. No surprise.
Amazing. And as you said at the very outset, this is not just a story about free speech on social media. This is a story about the corruption of the FBI, federal law enforcement. And you were absolutely right. Miranda Devine, vindicated once again.
And Tucker, look, yeah, Elon Musk needs to let all the information out. Let us all see it. No more of this curating and holding back.
No, it's ridiculous. I appreciate it. Thank you, Miranda.
Thanks, Tucker.
Well, as we pointed out before, the DOJ knew that Hunter Biden's laptop was real. It wasn't from Russia because the FBI had seized it back in 2019. But they wanted to hide the contents of the laptop. It would be the evidence of corruption in the Biden family, selling access to the U.S. government, because there was an election taking place weeks later. And there really was corruption, actual corruption. And we thought this needed a long-form explanation. So we just made a documentary on it. It's called Biden, Inc. It's out today on Fox Nation. Here's a preview of it. It's actually not a very complicated story. These people are not geniuses. But it did need 20 or 25 minutes just to lay it out. And once you see it, it's extremely clear. It's indisputable what happened. It's called Biden Inc. Part 1 is out right now on Fox Nation. Part 2 comes out tomorrow. Actress and our friend Kirstie Alley passed away last night. I'll tell you about her life after the break. Like everybody else in America, we watched Kirstie Alley on television and in the movies for nearly 40 years. But of course, we had no idea what she was really like until she visited us for a long-form interview about a year and a half ago. What a remarkable person she turned out to be. Humane, wise, smart, funny, warm. It's hard to convey all those qualities in a single soundbite, but this may give you a taste of it.
I think probably as a whole that the Hollywood community, they're good people and they do have strong political views.
Yes.
They have strong, human rights and just, civil rights, and they have strong views, and I do think that they can have an effect on the rest of the world in a good way. Not always, but in a good way. So I understand people's views, and so when I would see people that I knew or people I've praised a lot, like on Twitter and gone, oh my God, I saw you in this movie, you were so brilliant, or this or that, they like all that. And they're over there talking about maybe this time the opposite. We're for this person, we're Democrats, we're doing this, we're blah, 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 blah. And I would look at it and I go, well, that makes sense. I get it. Okay, blah, blah. But it's not like, oh my God, now I'm going to torch you. I don't feel like it's my group anymore. And that's sad because I feel like my group is tolerant for real. My group is pro-human rights, pro-religious rights, I feel like that is my group.
Pro-people.
Pro-people and not pretending like we're tolerant. You can't say you're a tolerant person if you only are tolerant with people you agree with.
Of course.
I think that's sort of the opposite.
Kirstie Alley really was a tolerant person in the deepest and truest sense. She was a lover of people and of animals and nature and of life itself. She was an appreciator. Kirstie Alley passed away in Tampa yesterday at the age of 71. And while we have no doubt at all that she was not afraid as she left, we're sad that she did. Kirstie Alley, rest in peace. Well, you may recall that this year the Biden administration planned to launch a disinformation board. Now we're learning a lot more about what they plan to do and, in fact, have done to censor the speech of American citizens. Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri has obtained new documents from DHS and joins us tonight to reveal them. Senator, thanks so much for coming on. What did you learn about the disinformation board?
Well, what we learned, Tucker, is that there's collusion at the highest levels of government and big tech. We learned that the disinformation board was up and running as early as the first part of this year. They were meeting weekly. That's not, by the way, what Alejandro Mayorkas said, by the way. He said that, oh no, the board never met. Not true. They were meeting on a weekly basis. They were giving instructions to other components of the U.S. government, and they were meeting with big tech. They wanted to meet with Twitter. They reached out to Facebook, and liberal dark money groups were also in on the act, as it turns out, giving the board ideas, instructions about how to shape policy. So here's the bottom line, Tucker. You've got a powerful arm of the United States government trying to tell big tech who to censor, what to do. You've got liberal dark money groups who are also pulling the strings. It's an incredible picture of collusion.
Well, it's totally illegal. I mean, the U.S. government cannot, as the government, censor political speech. I mean, that's the one thing they can't do. How are they doing this?
They're doing it by coercing private companies to do it. And you're exactly right, Tucker. And by the way, the Supreme Court has been clear on this. The Supreme Court has said the U.S. government cannot go to private actors and coerce them to do things that the government couldn't do on its own under the Constitution. But Tucker, that is exactly what the Biden administration has been doing. They've been pressuring private companies and really colluding with them to censor domestic speech, to censor American citizens' political speech on everything from COVID to mask mandates to CRT to the war in Ukraine. All of it, Biden has been trying to control through the government.
It just tells you the next time there's some national panic and you're required to believe something, it's almost certainly a lie. And I really appreciate your, reporting on this that the New York Times should be doing but didn't. Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri, thank you.
Thank you.
So the other day, our friend Candace Owens asked a simple and pretty revealing question on social media. Why do men use Botox and lip injections? And people had a heart attack, but it's still a fair question. Like, why not ask that question? People didn't used to look like Joe Biden, but they do now. Is that okay? Candace Owens joins us after the break. There have been developments in the Georgia Senate race we're going to go live to for the rest of the show in just a minute. But first, we just thought this was interesting and worth addressing. So Candace Owens raised a pretty relevant question the other day on social media and got a huge response. She wrote this: serious question for men. Do you think that the Botox filler fake lips look attractive? Now, that's a real question, because all of a sudden everybody in power has fake faces. Nancy Pelosi looks like Michael Jackson, not being mean, but it's true. The governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, clearly keeping Botox stock afloat single-handedly, and then men are in on it too. What part of Joe Biden is still real? None. Jeff Bezos, completely transformed by this stuff. So we thought we would ask Candace Owens, like, what's going on here? Is this a sign of something deeper, a deeper fakeness infecting our leadership class? Candace Owens is, of course, the host of the Candace Owens Show. We're happy to have her now. Okay, so Candace, you address the most sensitive topics in American life, race, religion, like you're not afraid of anything. But this got a huge response. Why?
Oh man, Botox gate. I was very surprised. I landed myself in a puddle of uh-oh, and I'm laughing out loud now because I can never look at that photo of Nancy's eyebrows and not chuckle to myself. But yeah, I've been very curious, and I cover this on my podcast all the time, talking about our psychological immune system, meaning that we're constantly looking at all of these digital toxins. We scroll through our phones on social media, and then we suddenly start emulating the behavior that we see. Case in point, wear a mask, save lives. Now people are suddenly masking their children and won't go outside. Or an element of that is that you go on social media and everybody's starting to look the same. It's like Avatar. It's very bizarre. And I'm not against people that want to get Botox and nip and tuck. I don't personally do it, but I was curious if men found this new face that everyone has decided upon to be attractive. And boy, was I met with so much heat from women. I have a close friend of mine who gets Botox. She said, Candace, you're launching a war on us white women. How dare you? This is what we have to do. I realize that some topics, Tucker, are in fact too sensitive, and I would like to apologize to all of my fans and listeners, and I will leave your Botox and your filler alone, but we should investigate what is happening to Nancy's eyebrows.
Well, I agree with that, but and everyone is starting to look the same, and that's a really insightful observation, which never occurred to me. But men? I mean, I don't want to be judgy, everyone does his own thing or whatever, but it's a little bit, there's something a little bit awful about that, is there not?
Well, I'll tell you what's awful about it. The first thing is that men age like fine wine. Men actually get better as they age. It's just a fact. A man at 20 is not going to look as good as a man at 45. So it's really bizarre that they're trying to hold on to their youth when women prefer older guys, when they start to get gray hair and things of that nature. And yet they too are being impacted by this psychological immune system on Instagram, and everybody's starting to look the same. It's very hard to tell the difference between a trans man and a woman that's been getting a lot of work. And this is just where we're at today. And I wanted to open the conversation and say, hey, it's possible to just like your face and to age gracefully. And I learned that people are not ready yet to have that conversation.
I agree. I never got any plastic surgery until I turned 65, and then I was like, I have no choice at this point. Just kidding. Candace, it's great to see you tonight. Thank you for that. We have a Fox News alert for you. Herschel Walker has now taken the lead in the Georgia Senate runoff. 60% of the vote is in. He's pulled ahead of the incumbent Democrat Raphael Warnock by several thousand votes. Bill Hemmer rejoins us from the big board to tell us what's happening. Hey, Bill.
Hi, good evening again. We got a horse race here, Tucker. There is no doubt about it. Right now, just a tick before 9 o'clock East Coast time, you got about 2/3 of the estimated vote in at 64%. A difference in raw votes here of just shy of 50,000, now at 50,000 between Walker and Warnock. I can canvass this map, Tucker. I can take you to a multitude of different counties and give you a good story for Herschel Walker, or I could flip it around and show you good news for Raphael Warnock. So why don't we start here now? And Tucker, what I think is going to happen here, I just wanted you to see something here. This is where we are right now between the red and blue. This is where we were 4 weeks ago. Right? Do you see much of a difference? I mean, do you see how subtle that is? A few more are set to fill in here, but right now we're not even sure if any of the counties have even flipped for one side or the other based on 4 weeks ago. So let's go to Fulton County here. This is Atlanta, Georgia. A lot of the vote is still outstanding here. Just about a half of it's accounted for. 1 out of 159 counties. I'll pop over here to Gwinnett County, population ranked 2 out of 159. Just a tick below 60% of the vote in here. This is Cobb County. Big numbers of people living in this part of Georgia. You're just at 50% right now, 3 out of 159. So how's Warnock and Walker doing? As of right now, in a place like Cobb County, I'll take you 4 weeks ago to today and look at the percentage for Warnock. Okay, so that tells me that Herschel Walker has room to run, literally, in Cobb County, because the early vote was counted first. Remember, that was the early in-person vote over the past week and a half. But Warnock, again, 4 weeks ago, ended up just shy of 57%. He's outperforming that right now. But again, you got a lot of the votes still out here in Cobb County. Conversely, I can take this and get out of metro Atlanta. Remember, the 16 major counties that make up the Atlanta area, heavily blue in parts. And I can come down to, well, let's just pick one around here, okay? This is Pierce County. Look, it's about halfway, 88 out of 159. Not a ton of people live there. This is what Walker is doing with almost the entire vote in there. And 4 weeks ago, he was right around that same number. So as we go around this map here, Tucker, I'll tell you this. Going to be a long night in Georgia. I think so, because we've got a horse race on our hands so far in the Peach State, Tucker. We'll see you later.
You'll be watching.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Yeah,
Bill Hemmer, great to see you. So some of us have given up trying to predict election outcomes after the midterms last month, but others understand American politics, and Ned Ryan is one of those. He's CEO of American Majority. He grew up with politics, and he joins us to assess what we're watching. Ned, thanks for joining us. What are we seeing here?
Absolutely.
You think?
Well, I think we're obviously seeing all the early votes have come in. I think, as Bill pointed out, I guess my real question, Mark Tucker, is how are these Atlanta counties, how many votes are still left? Obviously, they're going to favor Warnock over Walker. I have my doubts. I have real concerns that the remaining votes coming in favor Warnock. Again, though, as you just mentioned, I've kind of given up a little bit on political procrastination because, boy, it's hard to really call some of these races. But, you know, it looks like it's going to be tight one way or the other. But I got to tell you, I'm not optimistic about Walker holding on right now.
So let me ask you, since you do know a lot about the mechanics of these things, you know a lot about how the parties work. The get out the vote operation that the Democrats put into effect last month was pretty unbelievable. You know, whether it was legit or not or whatever, they really did a lot of get out the vote. Are the Republicans doing that in Georgia?
I have my doubts that they are nearly as good as the Democrats. The thing that troubles me, Tucker, is we used to be really good at this. We used to be good at absentee ballot chasing. We used to be good at all the ballot out, ballot in stuff that the Democrats have beaten us at. And I've got real concerns that we have not probably been able to match them in Georgia. And I think that's a real concern going forward. I think unless we actually figure out the ballot out, ballot in machine before 2024, I would question strongly whether we can win Michigan or Pennsylvania or Georgia or Wisconsin, Minnesota, Arizona, or Nevada. And I think we've got a lot of work to do. And I think that calls into question. If Walker cannot pull it out tonight, and it's yet another loss for Republicans, I think we have to have real change of leadership inside the party, especially at the RNC, and actually commit to some of these ballot out, ballot in machine things that I think are lacking right now.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem like an unsolvable math problem to me. Ned, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Tucker.
So a lot of people in the media took money from FTX, the scam, and Sam Bankman-Fried, the guy who ran the scam, as Sam Bankman-Fried defrauded countless innocent investors. Ben Smith at the news website Semaphore took millions and millions from Sam Bankman-Fried. The question is, will Ben Smith give the money back? We're going to investigate that for tomorrow's show. We're out of time for now, but Sean Hannity takes over right now.
All right, and thank you, Tucker, and welcome to Hannity. We begin with this Fox News alert tonight. The results from Georgia's all-important Senate runoff are pouring in, but this race continues to be, as you can see right there, extremely tight. Likely will go down to the wire. Joining us now at the very latest, he's at the Hemmer Big Board, our own Bill Hemmer. Sir.
Hello, Sean.
One county that's shocking me, where's DeKalb County's reporting?
Yeah,
because all night they have been, like, missing in action.
Yeah, sorry. Good evening to you, Sean, by the way. Great to be with you. And DeKalb County just a moment ago checked in. And when DeKalb County checked in, we saw this race flip here. Walker had a lead about 10 minutes ago. Now it's flipped toward Warnock. A difference right now of 22,482 votes. This is DeKalb County right here just east of Atlanta, Sean. Okay, we were at 5% reporting up until about 10 minutes ago. Now you're at 41%. A lot of Democrats in DeKalb County, a lot of votes for Warnock. What does it mean, however? Population ranked 4 out of 159. It's a big county, a lot of votes right there, okay? Warnock's at just shy 91.5%. I take you back to the midterms from 4 weeks ago and just watch the percentage of the vote between these two candidates. I'll go ahead and circle this just to point it out for you. Warnock right now at 91.6. 4 weeks ago, all right, 84.3. What that tells me, Sean, is that Herschel Walker has room to run here in DeKalb County. Let me clear that off and show you again. That's where we are right now. And he's not going to finish at 92% in that county. He's going to do well. But again, Walker's going to close that margin a bit here. And that's where the drama lies right now. And that's why we have such a horse race. Sean, I want to show you something else here. This is what we call the vote outstanding, all right? We did this on election night. Purple haze, purple rain, whatever you like. We shaded every county in Georgia. The deeper the purple, the more the outstanding vote. There's not a ton of outstanding vote. See a couple rural counties down here, but all in this Atlanta area and down here in the southeast near Savannah, that's where we see these shades of pink. And you mentioned DeKalb, and DeKalb is one of them. Let me just see. No, they're still at 41%, so let's see how that goes through the night. Give me one moment here, Sean, because I want to go to Cobb County. This is number 3 out of 159. This number hasn't moved, just about half of the vote in. Over here in Gwinnett County, 2 of 159, a little higher, but not really a final tell for a county with a large population like Gwinnett County, just 58% reporting. Let me go back to the outstanding votes just to figure out what we're kind of looking at right here. I'll just poke around. This is Savannah, okay? That's Chatham County. That's where Raphael Warnock grew up. Let's just check right now and see in tonight's vote in Chatham County how we're doing, okay? We're at 60% reporting, thereabouts, estimate. Warnock is going to do well in this county, 68%. Population's big, 6 out of 159. So that's where he is right now. 4 weeks ago, let's go ahead and change the map here and show you. All right, Warnock was shy of 60% in Chatham County. Again, another place where Walker has some room to run tonight before the final tally goes. Let me just, I know a lot of numbers on the board right now. Just want to check this. Warnock at 59.4. All right, 68.2 again for tonight down here in Savannah. I can run through a lot of rural counties, Sean, but I want to take you to the north side of metro Atlanta, 16 counties around the Atlanta area. There's areas like Cherokee County. They are red. They're going to do well for the red team. Walker at 67%. Over here in Forsyth County, Walker at 63%. Hall County, Walker at 71%. About 2/3 of the vote in. Let's go ahead. I'm going to try something, Sean. I think you might have to write the numbers down. I'm going to need to anyway, okay? So we are at Cherokee County, about 60% in. Walker, let's see how he's doing, okay? From 4 weeks ago, he was at 67.6, so he might have some room to gain in Cherokee County. Come back to real time, and I'll pop to the east. This is Forsyth County, 60% reporting. Walker's at 63.2. 4 weeks ago, he checked in at 64.8. So right now, he's underperforming his margin in Forsyth County. But again, there still is some outstanding vote, only 60% reporting. One thing to keep in mind, we saw this on election night. Different states do it different ways. They process the votes differently. In Georgia, they count the early in-person vote first, starting at 7 a.m. this morning. So that tends to favor the blue team more than the red team. And we saw that during the first hour tonight. And we may be seeing a little bit of that right now, but we're going to have to wait and see
for a final tally here. I just want to come out statewide. Here we are, Sean. Look at this. Look at your timing. Hannity, look at your timing. You're at Warnock 50.0, Walker 50.0, a difference of 2,500 votes now in Georgia. I mean, this is a horse. For comparison's sake, Sean, show you the presidential results from 2020 in Georgia. You're at 11,779, okay? Remember the midterm results from, let me get this right here. All right, so here we are, Sean. This was 4 weeks ago, midterm. This is the reason why we're here now. Warnock did not get to 50% 4 weeks ago, all right? A difference of 36,000 votes. And tonight, right now, that is unbelievable. Tonight, you're at 36,465. It just ticked down again. You're back to 50%. Dead even right now in the state of Georgia. How about that?
You know,
you got
here's the
popcorn
question
for this?
Well, I'll take the popcorn.
Yeah.
Here's the question I have, because we've seen this in every race all around the country, especially in states like Arizona, Pennsylvania, and Georgia in the general election. Now we're seeing it again tonight. Do we know what percentage of the early vote has been counted versus day of voting, where Republican candidates tend to do better?
Yeah, here's what I can tell you. We had 1.9. Let me try and find that here. Your advance vote in Georgia was just shy of 1.9 million. All right, that's between the mail ballots returned, the early in-person vote. The Secretary of State came out today at 2 o'clock and expected us to be between 1.1 and 1.3 day of votes, which would be today. And then later during an interview on another network, they said that they could hit 1.4 million. So you have to think, if Walker's trying to turn out his voters, the higher that number goes, the better chance he has of keeping this close, because 4 weeks ago, this was the margin again, okay? It was Warnock over Walker by 36,465. So Herschel Walker's got to go through these rural counties and drive the number up. Maybe it's a couple hundred here, Sean. Maybe it's a couple thousand there, but that's his mission tonight. If he's able to do that, this race is going to stay very close. And there's a possibility that Walker could overcome his deficiency from 4 weeks ago. And I'm going to show you the governor's race here, because the governor's race with Kemp, he beat Stacey Abrams. Let me see if I can call it up for you so our viewers. I don't have that right there. My bad. He beat Stacey Abrams by 7 points. I don't know a whole lot of polling that had predicted that race to outcome for an outcome like that. But he did real well. And what Kemp did is that he took his entire ground game and gave it to the Senate Leadership Fund on behalf of Mitch McConnell. That means your door knockers, the folks who make phone calls, your volunteers, all your voters throughout the entire state. Brian Kemp's got the state wired. You know, he knows where to go to get votes, and we'll see whether or not that was an effective system for Herschel Walker tonight. But you're at 71% now, and we're dead even at 50.0 to 50.0.
Hey, Bill.
I find that extraordinary. Go ahead.
Right now, 50-50, and Herschel is up, by my math, by about a little under 1,000 votes. Is that what you have right at this moment?
1,994. That's what I've got.
There you go.
Right?
Higher than, forget my math. I need my calculator back.
309-708-307-714.
Yeah. I do wish we knew the numbers of early votes that have already been counted, because they were supposed to be counted first. Didn't the Secretary of State's office make that determination before today?
Yeah. If you give me a minute, I can jump on my laptop and I can figure that out for you and come back and get the early
All right, why
vote.
don't you do that? That'd be great.
And then we can probably sort through this and give our audience a better idea about where we're waiting for the vote. But I would hang on to this graphic right here, Sean, because it's going to tell us a lot. Places like, Fulton County, Douglas County, and a couple others. I mentioned Savannah, a couple of the rural counties. This is Bibb County here. This is where Macon's located. Just watching this throughout the night. You're 3/4 in. Warnock at just shy of 69. Let me just show you where he was. All right, so that number's probably going to come down a little bit. How much it comes down, I cannot say, but I'll get those early numbers for you, Sean, to check out. Back in with you shortly, okay?
All right, great job at the big board. It's no longer officially the Hannity big board. Hammer knows this board better than anybody, and we'll be going back to you throughout the evening.
Okay, Sean.
It doesn't get any closer than that. Herschel Walker, 1,309,000. Warnock, 1,307,000, and we'll keep an eye on it. It's very close with 71% of the vote in. We go to Ron Johnson, the great senator from the state of Wisconsin. We had other plans of questioning you, but you had a very tight race yourself. One of the questions I think Republicans are going to have to ask themselves, regardless of how this night pans out, Senator, you were in a pretty tight race, but it seems Republicans in many states are reluctant, they are resistant to early voting or voting by mail. They're not. It doesn't seem to be the case in Florida, where Republicans do vote by mail, they do vote early. So my question to you is, if that's the current system, Democrats seem to be exploiting it, and they run up these big leads before Election Day, and then the Republicans are playing catch-up the rest of the night.
No, we have to get better at it, Sean. You know, part of our problem, you've seen a county map of the United States, right? It's all red, except for a few bright blue dots in the metropolitan areas. You know, every state's pretty much the same way. That's the way Wisconsin is. We've got blue areas in Dane County and Milwaukee County, you know, Madison. And so Democrats have a lot less geography to cover. And so it's a whole lot easier, a whole lot cheaper for them to, you know, go ahead and, you know, get those early votes out and keep harassing those people to get those votes in. We've got to mine votes in every area of the state. Same thing's happening in Georgia. So it is a more difficult task. But we need to devote more resources, maybe a few less dollars spent on ads. I mean, the ad spending is grotesque, quite honestly. I mean, it's just so many ads. People start tuning them out. There's got to be a, you know, the theory of diminishing returns, okay? We need to allocate more money to the ground game because we have a much more difficult challenge than Democrats because we have to, again, mine votes from all over the state.
Yeah, let me ask you about this issue, how the FBI on a weekly basis was warning big tech companies. I know you and Senator Grassley are going to have a lot of FBI whistleblowers coming out and speaking publicly and getting their testimony. But the FBI meeting weekly with all these big tech companies, warning them of a potential hack and leak operation. We know that the former head of site integrity for Twitter, a guy by the name of Yoel Roth, that he's testified under oath that, in fact, the FBI specifically mentioned you might get information about Hunter Biden. But yet we know that the FBI had Hunter Biden's laptop for 11 months prior to the 2020 election. They knew what was in there. They had plenty of time to vet it and find out that it was in fact his laptop. And then we're finding out, why would the FBI be warning big tech companies not to report a story that they should have known by that point was true, that was Hunter's laptop? In other words, did the FBI put their finger on the scale, like they did in 2016, in order to help a Democratic presidential candidate?
Yes, they did, and they did it way before October of 2020. I mean, it certainly starts explaining why we received that unsolicited briefing from the FBI in August 2006. FBI knew that Chuck Grassley and I were investigating Hunter Biden. So they're out there talking to not only us, but also, you know, these social media companies and saying, you know, there just might be some hacking going on here of candidates, family members, and, you know, who knows? They could take that hacked material and turn it into disinformation. People like on Hunter Biden, they were already setting the stage because they knew the Hunter Biden computer was out there. They basically threatened in a veiled attempt or veiled way, Mr. McIsaac, you know, boy, people who talk, don't get in trouble, don't get hurt. And so they were just laying the groundwork in case that computer ever surfaced to sabotage it by labeling it misinformation. You know, what was their coordination with the 51 intelligence officials that wrote that letter that helped interfere in our election? So there's no doubt about it. This corruption was occurring all through 2020. We had Democrats in Congress also trying to do everything they could to undermine Senator Grassley's and my efforts. So I have no idea how coordinated, but it sure seems pretty coordinated effort by Democrats in Congress, the FBI, the mainstream media, and the social media companies.
So did they, if you use the words of Elon Musk, he talked about, for example, the very definition, if you're shutting down dissenting voices, it is by its very definition election interference. We know that the FBI was telling all of these big tech companies, warning them, oh, they might have these hack and leak operations. You got to be on the lookout for it. And in fact, you don't want to disseminate information that turns out to be false. Now, they had the laptop. Did they not know after 11 months of having the laptop, now they've had it 3 years, that in fact that it was legitimately Hunter Biden's laptop, and shouldn't they have known? And if they did know, why would they knowingly be lying to big tech companies about a story like that?
Because they're partisans and they're tipping the scales. And yes, they interfered in the 2020 election to a far greater extent than anything Russia ever could have hoped to accomplish. And quite honestly, Sean, by giving me that briefing in August and then leaking it and smearing me in May of 2021, they also interfered in the Wisconsin Senate election as well. So we've got a real problem in the FBI. But again, the media and big tech's social media giants are also complicit and corrupt as well. This is a much bigger story than just the Twitter files.
Yeah. All right. Well, Ron Johnson, first, we're glad you won your race. You were going up against a pretty radical opponent, Mandela Barnes, and that was a big win for Republicans. Congratulations. We're glad you're there for another 6 years. Thank you. All right, joining us now, here it is. We have Herschel Walker at 50.1 and Raphael Warnock at 49.9. We've got 72% of the vote in, Mr. Speaker. This is your home state of Georgia. Pretty close race. How do you analyze it up to now?
Well, I think up to now, and I think Bill Hemmer's been really remarkable in his coverage. What I read is that Herschel's doing as well or better than he needs almost everywhere. In fact, probably by the time this gets done tonight, if it's accurate that they counted the early voting first, then the rest of the evening we'll see Herschel gradually pull further away. Now, again, you got some huge counties out. You got Fulton, Gwinnett, Cobb, DeKalb. These are huge counties, and so you can't fully be sure what will happen. But I would say, as of right now, that looks better for Herschel than I would have expected. I mean, I'm delighted with where we are right this minute, and I think all of us should just hold on tight and let's see what happens the rest of the evening. But it's certainly a sign that all the lies and all the smears and everything that was done against Herschel didn't work. It's also a sign, to be fair, that Governor Brian Kemp, who is clearly the most popular and most powerful politician in Georgia, has had a huge impact in the race. And he and Herschel together are the two heroes of this evening if they end up winning. Because without his deep, strong support, you wouldn't have had the turnout that you're getting in rural counties.
You know, I asked this question of Senator Johnson. I'll ask you the same question, Mr. Speaker. If I had the perfect voting system that I believe would have the most integrity for the country and that everybody would have confidence in the results in, I would make Election Day a national holiday. I would go to paper ballots. I would make exceptions for the military, the sick, the infirmed, people that might be away on business. They can apply for an absentee ballot. Short of that, I would have partisan observers from every party watching the voting in every precinct, and then watching the vote counting after the polls close, start to finish, up close. We get the result at the end of the night. But until then, don't Republicans have to work the system that they have? And the reason I say that is because it seems that the Democrats, they're more in the ballot business than they are in the business of selling ideas or campaigning. You know, we barely saw Katie Hobbs. She wouldn't debate Kari Lake. Fetterman didn't debate Dr. Oz until 700,000 votes were in and 1 week before the election. I think Republicans have been unwilling, for whatever reason, reluctant, resistant to voting early and voting by mail. Do they have to get over that reluctance, that resistance?
Sure. Look, I mean, you have to play the game by the rules that are existing. That means, for example, if you want Generation Z voters, you've got to be on TikTok, even if, in fact, in the long run, we may abolish TikTok as a Chinese communist device. It means that you have to recognize early voting. It doesn't do Republicans any good to save their TV money till October if they've had a third of the vote come in September. And if people are going to have early voting, the huge advantage of early voting is it lets you know who to focus on because they haven't voted yet. And let me just point out, Democrats focus on elections. Republicans focus on campaigns. Democratic consultants ultimately are paid to win elections. Republican consultants are paid to buy TV ads for campaigns. Very different models. And as I've indicated in a newsletter that's going out tomorrow, we need to really rethink from the ground up, not just at the surface, but from the ground up, how far Republican doctrine is out of touch with reality.
I want to ask you one other thing, and it got a lot of notice when you said that you believe Republicans are underestimating Joe Biden. That even surprised me.
Well, look, I got to it in part by watching the Bulldogs work their way to #1 and thinking about football and, frankly, watching my beloved Packers not work their way to #1. And I realized that, you know, there's a clarity in sports. There are winners and losers. Well, the truth is, if you back out by his standards to achieve what he wants to achieve, Joe Biden has been pretty darn effective. And he had just had one of the best off-year elections in American history. If it wasn't for Kevin McCarthy's leadership on the House side, the Republicans would have had a bad, bad night. And so I would say to you, we have to start by being honest and respectful of our opponent. And our opponent in this case turned out to be a heck of a lot more successful than we thought he would be. Pelosi ran a dictatorship with great power in the House. You can despise it or dislike it, but it achieved what she wanted it to and what Biden wanted it to. So I think you've got to start with the reality, and that's, I have a new newsletter coming out about rethinking from the ground up. We need to understand the Republicans live in a fantasy land and do not confront the reality of what they're up against.
Stay with us, Mr. Speaker. We're going to go back to you throughout the hour. We appreciate your time. We go back to Bill Hemmer. He is at the big board. You know, I would argue that our viewers tonight, Bill, are on an emotional roller coaster. Just moments ago, Herschel Walker was up by 11,000 votes. Now he's down by a deficit of about 21,000, at least my last edition before going to you. That would mean, I would imagine that a big batch of votes probably from DeKalb County got dropped.
Yeah, I just listened to you and Newt describe in a lot of those high population counties around the Atlanta area. I'm going to take you there in a moment here, Sean, but I was showing our audience this a short time ago. You look at the map right now in the runoff. Just watch the red and blue from 4 weeks ago. Just watch it here. It's very subtle, okay? Just take it off again. This is tonight now, okay? Look in this area right here, southeast of Atlanta. This is 4 weeks ago. See those counties flip? Okay, so these counties were for Walker 4 weeks ago, all right? As of tonight, right now, coming back to real time tonight, they flipped the blue. What are they? This is Baldwin County. Sean, we were talking about this earlier today. Baldwin County is a bellwether. And right now, Raphael Warnock is taking a slight lead with just about all the estimated vote in at 50.6. Now, in this county, and it's 47 out of 159, so folks live there. It's not as rural as some of these other places we've looked at thus far tonight. But 4 weeks ago, you see what's happening there? Sean, the margins are so small here. It's a point here. It's a half a point there. It's 0.4 percentage points in this direction. And that's what we find in Baldwin County. Now, again, that was 4 weeks ago. And tonight, right now, Warnock has flipped that just a little bit. But these margins matter. Let's pop over here. This is Washington County. This is another one here, 92% reporting. So you got a little bit of votes still out there, 90 out of 159 in terms of population. Warnock has a slight edge over Walker tonight. Let's go back 4 weeks ago and see what happened there. You see that? You see that change there? Where Walker had the advantage over Warnock. And again, tonight, in this county, Warnock has that slight lead. And if you go out throughout the state of Georgia, you can find these rural spots where Walker has done slightly better, a point here or 2 points there than he did 4 weeks ago. But just in this right now is what I was noticing. Let's go look at the outstanding vote again. We'll go back to our purple map here. I think it's very similar, Sean, to when I talked to you about 10 minutes ago. It's Metro Atlanta, and it's down here around Savannah and the counties that surround it. So let's go ahead and do our deep dive here and find out where we are. This is Cobb County. Newt Gingrich knows all about Cobb County. It was his hometown. He was the congressman there. Hasn't changed a great deal. You're at 2/3. You're 3 out of 159. A lot of votes to be had there. Warnock just shy of 62%. 4 weeks ago, Warnock was at 56.8%. So Walker is going to gain some votes in that area of the state. Will it be enough? Really hard to say. We just checked a moment ago, Sean. There had been about 44% of the election day vote had been counted. And Walker was winning that vote 66 to 34%. All right, which would seem to indicate a pretty good night for Herschel Walker. Problem is, in these big counties, the raw vote totals that will come out of places like Cobb and DeKalb and Gwinnett and Fulton, you have to ask yourself whether or not that's going to be enough, whether that's going to be held down enough on behalf of Walker's team in order to lead him to victory, or whether or not Warnock can use these big populated Democratic counties to his advantage. This is one of them. This is Fulton County. Again, you're stuck at half the vote in. He's going to do really well all around Atlanta, Georgia, and Fulton County. Watch what he did 4 weeks ago, okay, 73. All right, so that shows you there that Walker's got, I hate to keep saying this, I know he won the Heisman Trophy 40 years ago this year. I know the University of Georgia won a national championship 40 years ago this year. I know the Georgia Bulldogs are 13-0 and they're #1 in the country, and they got a real good chance against Ohio State in about a month, okay? But nonetheless, Walker's got some room to run in some of these big counties because he's going to gain some vote. But whether or not that's enough to overcome Warnock is something we just do not know. In Fulton County, okay? Pop over here to Gwinnett County, #2 out of 159. You're 76%, you're 3/4 of the vote in. That's Warnock right now. It's 64%, let's call it. And 4 weeks ago, he was at, okay, a little less. So again, Sean, the analogy on the gridiron works yet again that Walker's got some room to run, okay, if you'll grant me that. Come back to Cobb County one last time. Hasn't changed. So I'm going to bail out of that. I just want to take you to the outstanding vote to see. Hasn't changed a ton here, Sean. Just some pink around Savannah and a little more pink here around, Savannah and then Atlanta there. For Walker, let me just go back in here and check Cherokee County, all right? You know, you get a lot of red votes in this part of the state here. 4 weeks ago, you're at 67.6. Tonight, Walker's at 68. So at the moment, that's a good number for Walker. He picked up just a little bit. Again, these margins, 1 point here and 1 point there throughout the state, can add up to a victory for one candidate or the other. Big picture, if you look at it, just take a step back here. Let's see what's changing. Let's see what's flipping. Again, those counties have held, all right? They're blue tonight. They were red 4 weeks ago. I saw one clipping here. It was red 4 weeks ago. Tonight it's blue. Let's check in and see what's happening in Fayette County. 21 out of 159. Warnock right now at 55%, just shy of that. You got 71% of the vote in. If a number like that holds up for Warnock, that's got to be good news for the Democratic candidate. 4 weeks ago, Warnock, all right, you see where he finished in that county. All right, you see where Walker had the edge, okay? So some of this early in-person vote that we showed you a short time ago has to be considered when you look at the state at 1.9 million. They count those first, and that could very well be the case as we pop in here to Fayette County. Too early to call. A lot of votes still outstanding. We'll see whether or not that county stays blue here or whether or not it flips back to red from 4 weeks ago. I'm just curious because I'm seeing this for the first time here. 4 weeks ago, you see what Walker had. He had just more than 50% in Fayette County. So that is where we are as of difference of 16,000 votes, 1:25, 9:27 p.m. East Coast time, Sean. It's a horse race. We said it an hour ago. We expected it to be close, and indeed it has been in Georgia. And we'll see where we go in the next couple of minutes here. Back to you, Sean.
All right, Bill Hemmer, we'll check in with you in a few minutes. And thanks for being at the big board for us. Great numbers, a lot of numbers for people out there. I know this becomes a little bit of an emotional roller coaster. You're watching at home, your candidate's up, then he's down, and you're wondering what votes are outstanding, what votes are day of, what votes are early votes. Anyway, joining us now, Florida Senator Marco Rubio is with us. You know, Senator, there is the reluctance and resistance that I've been talking about all night among Republicans in many states to vote early or to vote by mail. That is not the case in your state of Florida. Republicans do vote early, they do vote by mail, and they are confident in the integrity of the process, and they have confidence in the results. What are Republicans in Florida doing different? Systematically, what are you doing differently down there that would give people more confidence so they wouldn't have this catch-up of a couple of 100,000 votes every election day?
Yeah, well, first of all, Sean, you want to have a system that people know is going to have results within a reasonable period of time. I mean, these elections that go on for a week, and, you know, it seems like every time in these elections Republicans are up, and then 5 days later, you know you're going to lose. I mean, it always ends that way. So I think that undermines confidence. But I think it really ultimately begins from the campaigns with the approach, and that is a voter's a voter. And it doesn't matter if the voter voted by mail or voted early or voted on election day. A vote is a vote. And what you want to do is make sure that you're making it as easy as possible for people to vote. And as a candidate, for your supporters to vote. So look, some people in Florida have to vote by mail. It is a seasonal state. As you well know, there are a lot of people that don't live in Florida and don't come down to Florida until December. They're full-time residents, but they're not there that time of year. They have to vote by mail. There are others that you would like to see them vote early. Why do I want to see someone vote early? Because you don't want election day to be the day they got the flu, the day the car breaks down, the day that there's a storm, the day someone in their family gets sick and suddenly, you know, or they just forget to go. So you want to get that vote in as quickly as possible. They're actually, mechanically speaking, there is no difference in Florida between voting on election day or voting early. You're using the same paper ballot in the same process. The only difference is you don't have to go vote in your neighborhood precinct. You can vote at any of the early voting sites, and different counties have different number of days.
Don't you have to
make a long line.
You have to provide a voter ID. What about signature verification?
Yeah, so on the absentee ballots, so the ballots that are mailed to people, there is a signature verification. And, you know, if those get in early and the signatures don't match, then they have time to correct that, because sometimes people get arthritis or whatever and their signature changes. If you're going to vote in person, your ID is provided at that site. You have to sign there, too, and it has to match the signature they have on file or the signature that's on your ID. But, look, I voted early. I voted early about 10 days before. It took me all of about 7 minutes to go in and get it done. There was no line, no long wait. And it worked. And so for us, the key is always to identify your supporters and get them in the box as early and as quickly as possible. You don't want to leave too many for Election Day. But there's still a lot of people that want to vote on Election Day. They like the whole process of going to vote on Election Day. You don't walk away from those people either.
Senator, you said, it was pretty amazing to me, and I thought it was very poignant, your point. You said we were able to count 7,500,000 votes in less than 5 hours, and it took a week and a half to count far less votes in the state of Arizona. There really is no excuse for that, is there?
No, and it gives off the perception, whether it's real or not, it gives off the perception that they want to see what the vote is, and then they decide, we're going to keep counting votes until we get enough votes to overtake you and win the election. That's how it seems to have played out in these other states. I'm not claiming that's what happened. I'm just telling you that's what it looks like, and it creates a lot of negativity around it. In Florida, all of those early votes and all those mail votes are tabulated on Election Day. They're run through the machine. They're not announced. They're not released, but they've got them counted at 7:01 p.m. 7:01 p.m. Eastern Time, and then 7:01 p.m. Central Time in those counties in the Northwest Florida area. They hit send, and the computer immediately pops up, and you can see almost within the first 10 minutes after polls close what the early vote and what the mail vote is. And then the rest of the counting is the Election Day tabulation that's going on, and it's being fed in real time from the voting sites as they're run through the machine. Every time someone votes, the machine counts it and stores it, but doesn't release it. And the result is you're getting outcomes very quickly. By 11 p.m., you pretty much know the outcome of every race in Florida, unless it's like really, really close.
I hope every Republican governor is listening tonight and every Republican legislature is listening tonight, because that ought to be the system that they adopt. You heard Newt Gingrich on earlier, and he was talking about the fact that Republicans would be better served if they went on social media platforms, and he did mention TikTok. You're calling for every American to get off of TikTok.
I am, and for two reasons. Number one is they're scooping up a bunch of data, okay? Your data's on your phone, all that data from your kids and anybody else, they're just scooping all of that up, and if the Chinese government asks for it, they have to turn it over. So they know a tremendous amount about Americans in general, about our society, about what messages work. It gives them a huge advantage, not to mention the individual data of people that they can acquire. But here's the second thing that we now know, and it's been documented. Chinese state-run media entities are posting things, like making them look like news stories, on TikTok, okay, designing it to go after voters. They tried to interfere in this election. They attacked me. They attacked Governor Abbott and Senator Cruz in Texas. They did in a series of states, these Chinese-run media outlets, and with really small disclaimers on the bottom, so you can't even tell it's being produced by them. It says CCTV. Is producing these attack ads against Republicans on TikTok for free, and using the algorithms to target people that they know live in those states or care about these issues. They have weaponized that against us now in our election cycle. Forbes had a piece on that not too long ago. So I think TikTok should have been banned a long time ago. I wish President Trump would have done it. He was close to doing it. It needs to be done now.
Yeah, I think you're right, Senator. Anyway, we can learn a lot. It wasn't that long ago that Florida had their own voting problems with hanging, dimpled, pimpled, swinging chads. But you fixed the system. You had a problem, you addressed it. You had a problem in 2016, you addressed it again. And now I think that Florida has become a model for the country in terms of integrity in the voting system with full confidence in the results. So, Senator, we appreciate you being with us. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
All right, as we continue our coverage, you can see there it's about, what, a 7,000 vote margin. And anyway, we got to take, well, anyway, joining us now is House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy is with us. You're watching this. I'm asking everybody because I think it's an important question. Your reaction, your answer to the reluctance some Republicans in many states have about voting early and voting by mail. And going into Election Day, down a couple of 100,000 votes, I think, is too big a margin for Republicans to always have to make up. Your thoughts?
You're exactly right. I mean, think of this. I'm from California, so it has the worst election law in the country. Same-day voter registration, no ID. They mail every single person a ballot, and they don't clean up their voter rolls, and they let you harvest ballots. But for the last two elections, while all the other Republicans lost, we gained seats in the House. But you know what? We gained seats in California. We even won another seat from a Democrat in California this year. We won 3 seats in California this year where Joe Biden carried it by more than 10 points. You know why? Good candidates, good message and commitment to America, but we educate the voter that you've got to get that ballot in. If you wait just till Election Day, it's almost you're running a race where you're starting 30 yards behind. You don't know if you have enough time to catch. The last race we just won, we won by less than 600 votes. It is that close. I'm looking at what Herschel Walker's doing here. Every vote matters. Georgia changed their election law. Florida changed their election law, made it better. So Republicans should trust. You want to bank as many votes as you can. Republicans in the past, we had an advantage because we would vote early. We would vote by mail, and we'd put that away. I make sure in California, I do a drop-off where I have a drive-through where people come through and literally bring me their ballots, and I turn them into the election office. They sign the back, so it's all legal, but they can trace it, whether it got counted and where it went through with a simple app, and we make sure we do that.
Let me ask you about a couple of other issues. You've been challenging President Biden to go down to the border. You saw the reaction of his spokesperson laughing at the issue. He was within 100 miles of the border today, didn't take the time to go down there. We're talking about at least 4.5 million illegal immigrants this year, by far a record over last year's record. It is wreaking havoc on many communities all across the country, and Joe Biden just totally dismisses it. What can you do in the majority now when you get back in January?
Sean, you're 100% right on this as well. In his entire political career, where he's been elected for more than 40 years, I don't know that he's ever been to the border. So I challenge him. This is the difference with Republicans winning the majority in the House. A couple different things. You know what we can do on our very first moments of taking the majority? I can have hearings at the border so the Democrats can no longer ignore it. We can pass legislation. You talk about 4 million illegals coming across the border. When they lift Title 42, in the rest of the time period that Biden is president, 13 million more people are projected to come across that border illegally. But that's not the only problem, Sean. I talked to the president about this last week. Do you know, I saw a video of a woman who human trafficking. They cut her legs, her ankles off. They hung her from a tree. They put her on fire. I see bullets flying across the border, shooting at our National Guard. We do not have control of our own border. It's no longer just helping the border agents. The border agents today are processors instead of being out there because of what the Biden administration is doing. We should embed our Navy SEALs with them because this cartel is so powerful and so wealthy. Why? Because the fentanyl they're taking from China and moving it in that is killing our generation from the age of 18 to 45. 300 will die today. 300 will be poisoned and die tomorrow. It's the equivalent of every single day a full airliner crashing in America. But that's all changing in 28 days. And I got good news for you, Sean. You know what just posted online? The National Defense Authorization Act. You know what a new majority means in Congress? We will now lift the mandate in our military for the vaccine. No longer will they be able to kick out our men and service women. We've been fighting for this a long time. This is the difference when people go vote. This is the difference when I sat down and met with the president. I told him there would be no NDAA unless this was in. We just posted it. We just won. And think of everything else we can do if we're very ready to go on January 3rd.
The last question I have is, there's been a lot of talk in the Senate about, instead of a continuing resolution and waiting for the next Congress for a budget, about a big omnibus deal with the Democrats. I would be 100,000% against that. Is that going to happen?
I don't know how they get an omnibus now. And I got to give some credit to Leader McConnell. When he was in the White House, I listened to him really lecture the Democrats that you had to cut spending, that he was not going to go there with more money. And so if we end up with a continuing resolution, it's because he was holding firm. I believe that's the best option to move forward. And if Herschel Walker's able to win tonight, and this is a horse race going back and forth, and I have to be honest, Sean, I'm a little nervous about some of these counties of where they are. But that would be one more vote and a little more power. But we have the gavel in the House. As long as we do it right inside the House and we get this straight on January 3rd, we can start with the work going forward.
Well, we appreciate you being with us, Minority Leader, hopefully soon to be Speaker. Let me ask you about that. You had over 85% of Republicans supporting you for Speaker. I would not like to see Republicans have a big floor fight on January the 3rd over this issue. Any 5 members can muddy up the waters any day they want. Have you made progress bringing this team together and having an agenda that would be good for the American people? In other words, the commitments that you made to Americans when you were running. And number 2, the investigations that we've been talking about, whether the FBI has been politicized, whether the DOJ has been weaponized, and Hunter Biden, but more importantly, what did President Joe Biden know about Hunter's foreign business dealings?
You're 100% true, too. We can't do any of that on January 3rd. Even members can't be sworn in. You first have to elect the Speaker. And it's just like a primary. So I want a primary inside a conference with 85%. Very seldom do you ever see somebody win with that high a margin. I'm the nominee to go to the floor. If we can unite as one party, we will be very strong. If we divide, and if we're divided on January 3rd, we're squandering this majority. We can't send out any subpoenas. We can't have the hearings down at the border. We can't secure our border. We can't go into any investigation. That's the real question before us. So I believe we will come together for not only the good of the conference, but really to put people before politics. Let's show the American people that they trusted us with the majority and we're ready to govern. You're right.
All right. Kevin McCarthy, thank you for being with us. We head on back to the Hammer Big Board with the very latest. Look, I know our viewers have whiplash. I know it's an emotional roller coaster. Herschel's up, Warnock's up, Herschel's back up again. Where are these votes coming from, and what votes are outstanding?
The votes that are outstanding, Sean, are in areas where Democrats tend to do well, the big counties right around Atlanta, Georgia. Show you that in a moment. But right as you were coming to me, Sean, Herschel Walker just took the lead again, 0.2 percentage points. Raw vote total here up under 8,000, so 7,007. Okay, now 87-46. All right, the numbers are changing in real time. If you excuse me on that. I'll take you into what I was looking at a moment ago, Sean. These are the big counties, okay? This is where Warnock's going to get raw votes, okay? Only half's been reporting now in Fulton County, biggest county in the state. Up here in Gwinnett, number 2 out of 159, 3/4 in. Warnock's going to get raw votes again here in places like Gwinnett County. Cobb, look, this hasn't changed, 63%. Warnock's going to pick up raw numbers there to help him. Henry County, this county matters. Big demographic swing over the past 20 years. Henry County's got a lot of blue in it now. You got 61% of the vote reporting. So Warnock, again, is going to pick up some of these raw votes here in some of these areas, which which is going to keep Herschel Walker down at a certain level. Now, whether or not that's enough, we cannot say. But that's what I'm seeing in the center part of Atlanta. Let's come down to Savannah right here, Chatham County. You know, it's 6 out of 159. Warnock at 62.4. 4 weeks ago, he was, okay, so he right now, you know, Herschel Walker's, he's going to pick up some more votes in Chatham County there around the Savannah area. Just come back to real time tonight. Just want to check it again. 37.6. Okay, so that's where we are. Now, some viewers writing in, they want to know. They're on this. They're like, what's up with the gray? I can't tell you. This is Dodge County. What an ironic name that is. But no votes reporting right now here in Dodge County. Some of my favorites, Sean, throughout the night, we've been checking in on Bacon County, okay? All right, you got to have some bacon. And Telfair and Coffee, okay? So Coffee County, right now, Herschel Walker, rural area there, checking in right now with about 99% reporting. Wow, look at that. It's an extraordinary thing when you see these numbers in real time. 71.3 4 weeks ago, and tonight, 71.3 for Herschel Walker. Unfortunately for Walker's team, they need to do better than that. They need to get that 1 percentage point better, that 1.5% better. In places like Coffee County, as clever as it might be, he's not getting that in that part of the state. Go ahead, Sean.
When you talk about these big counties, and you know I lived in Georgia, yes. Fulton, Cobb, DeKalb, Gwinnett County, and the lower percentage of the vote being in those counties, they tend to be pretty blue counties, most of them.
They do.
And so that would say to me, advantage Warnock at this hour.
I would agree with that observation. It's a horse race. It's close, but I think on the margin, Sean, you're right about that. A few moments ago, we checked in. I gave you this. The election day vote is breaking 66-34 for Herschel Walker. So that's about 2 to 1. But does he need to do better than that in order to knock off Warnock?
I think the model that they needed, within his campaign, I spoke to his campaign spokespeople earlier, the number that they were looking at, the magic number they were looking at day of voting was 58% or higher.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, if that's the case, then among the vote that's been counted today, it's breaking Walker's way. And if you're right about that, and if they're right about that out of Georgia, that would portend good things for Herschel Walker. But we're going to have to see what happens with the other 50% of that vote that has yet to be reported from Election Day reporting. You with me on that?
I'm with you on that. Yes, sir. Okay. I'm following along. Yeah, the bouncing ball.
Hey, Sean, I got something here for you because all the counties are now reporting. The viewers at home, just you tell me what changes between red and blue. 4 weeks ago, that's where we were. It just, right? It's just that much, okay? Come back again, real time tonight. Do you see it? It's this rural area of Georgia that flips, okay? It was red 4 weeks ago, and tonight it's blue, okay? So what is that? Baldwin County. We talked about this being a bellwether. Look at the percentage breakdown between Warnock and Walker. 4 weeks ago, watch this. All right, you ready? Boom. I mean, that is just remarkable. Tonight, boom, changes back again. Come over here to Washington County, similar story. You see Warnock over Walker, 92% of that vote in. Watch here, Sean. Boom. All right, 4 weeks ago, that was the edge that Herschel Walker had in that county. And tonight, it flips back again toward Warnock. And in the end, that can make a big deal in rural parts of Georgia or, you know, perhaps in these areas here around Atlanta. Just checking on Douglas County. As you know, Sean, it's an area west of Atlanta. It's growing quite a bit over the past 2 decades. You're at 90% in, 18 out of 159. Warnock's got an edge there at 66%. And 4 weeks ago, Warnock was just a tick below that at 64.7. Again, tonight, this number percentage-wise is at 66%. Let's go to our outstanding votes. That's for Douglas County. Come out wide here, and let's see what we have. It hasn't changed a lot, Sean. All the gray area you see, that shows you where those counties have reported all of their votes. There's nothing else out there, all right? You see where the shades of pink come in the metro Atlanta area and the northern part of the state. There's some vote out there, some vote out down here in Savannah as well. But for a lot of the other areas, I will tell you that at least all the counties are reporting right now. And I wanted to do this just to show you. This is the midterms from 4 weeks ago. This is what Brian Kemp did and his Republican machine in Georgia, taking on Stacey Abrams, that rematch from 4 years ago. Beat her by 7 percentage points. This is Kemp now going throughout the state and finding his Republican voters. That same night, this is your Senate breakdown, okay, between Walker and Warnock. Herschel Walker was underperforming Brian Kemp's margins, and that's the reason why he was unable to eclipse the 50% mark from 4 weeks ago. And just take you real time tonight. Here's where we are, Sean. 83% reporting. Warnock has taken a lead yet again, just a little bit here. Difference of about 15.5 thousand votes. And that's where we stand, coming up on 10 o'clock East Coast time.
All right, Bill Hemmer at the big board. Great job all night. Thank you, Bill. Joining us once again, former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich from Georgia. When you look at the outstanding votes, Fulton, Cobb, DeKalb, Gwinnett counties, these are counties you know well. What's fascinating is when I was a local host and you became the Speaker of the House and I was your MC that night at the Cobb Galleria, Cobb County was a conservative county. That county has shifted pretty dramatically. The same with Fulton County, DeKalb County, Gwinnett County. These counties have gotten bluer. There seems to be more outstanding votes in these counties than the more rural parts of Georgia. Your take on that?
Well, there are. And the question I have, I guess I asked Bill Hemmer, who has done a great job this evening, is if the votes that are still outstanding are Election Day votes, and if, in fact, Walker was winning the Election Day votes, then some of the margin in those counties may actually shrink rather than expand. And I just don't know enough data to know whether that's the case. But, I mean, I would think if it's accurate that Walker is carrying the Election Day vote by about 64%, and his folks thought he had to be above 58, the odds are pretty good he's going to end up at the end of the night winning, because the votes that are still outstanding will not be as intensely for Warnock as they would have been if you just counted the early ballots. So I don't really know. I do want to make one point about something that Marco Rubio said. I agree with him that TikTok should be banned from the U.S. My earlier point was, as long as it is legal, we have to learn to compete in a place like that, because that's where Generation Z gets such a high percent of their information. So I agree with him that for national security reasons, we should outlaw TikTok. But whatever its replacement is for that generation, we have to learn how to be competitive within it.
What do you take out of this whole election season overall? What are the big takeaways for you?
Well, first, that the House Republicans were the one group nationally that was succeeding. With Kevin McCarthy's leadership, they gained votes in 20, they gained seats in 22. The Senate has lost seats two elections in a row, and we'll see tonight whether it's 3 or whether they tied this year. But I think that there's a lot to be learned from the Commitment to America, which people can see at commitmenttoamerica.com. I also think we are, as a party, Republicans are underperforming by probably 20 percentage points. And as you know, I've been running a project called americasnewmajorityproject.com, which people can see at that website. And I think there's a cultural majority in the 70 to 80% range, and we are dramatically underperforming because we have not been able to translate that potential majority into a political majority. And I just wrote a newsletter to go out tomorrow outlining major things that we need to rethink as a party. I think we shouldn't be complacent. We should recognize that we are dramatically failing the American people in not providing a system that takes their values and their beliefs and turns it into practical political power.
Voting in many ways, I think, has changed in America. Again, the system I would like would be make Election Day a national holiday. I would make exceptions for the sick, the infirm, the military, people that may be traveling for business. They can get an absentee ballot. But you would have partisan observers watching the voting start to finish up close. Then as soon as the polls close, you have partisan observers watch the vote counting, paper ballots, and everybody knows the results at the end of the night. Follow the example of Israel, Great Britain, and France and Canada. Why do we make it so complicated? early voting, weeks of voting, 50 days of voting, voting in perpetuity. Doesn't it lend itself to have questions as it relates to integrity?
Sure, it does both. I mean, the biggest single thing is to simply require a photo ID so we actually know who you are and that you're a legal citizen and that you're allowed to vote. The great challenge here is that we have 50 states, unlike the countries you described, which are unitary. Each of those states is allowed under the Constitution to run its own elections, and many of the states then delegated down to counties. We have 3,300 counties. So you end up with all sorts of random people. I mean, Maricopa County, which is the biggest county in Arizona, has been consistently a disaster. It's Palm Beach in 2000 magnified by election after election. And yet, for some reason, the state of Arizona doesn't seem to be able to clean it up. So I think there are challenges there. There are a lot of challenges with voting by mail, which Oregon, for example, Colorado, and Washington State now do. And of course, you have some places where the election really is, I think, not run very well. Philadelphia would be a good example of that. But the great challenge for America is we are a federal system. All 50 states have the right to define their own elections, and some of them don't do it very well.
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, thank you. I know you spent a lot of time with us tonight. We really appreciate it. Joining us now at the very latest, Brett Baer, the host of a special report. Fascinating night. I keep saying we're getting whiplash going back and forth in terms of the lead. The counties that seem to have the most outstanding votes, I know you know Georgia very well, Brett, and that would be Fulton County, DeKalb County, Cobb County, Gwinnett County. I know these areas well. On paper, that would tend to benefit Raphael Warnock. If they're day of, it probably gives maybe Herschel Walker a fighting chance, but still advantage Warnock, no?
Yeah, still too close to call, but you're right. Those counties for Democrats are rich with potential votes because of the numbers that are still out there, and that's where the Raphael Warnock campaign sees hope. The Walker campaign did overperform in some of those rural counties. The problem is that they're smaller, and he is doing better tonight than a lot of people predicted going into tonight. We don't know where this is going to end up, but those counties, Fulton, DeKalb, even Cobb, and Gwinnett, are potentially problems for Democrat real-time vote. I just want to mention one thing. How much money has been spent in this race? It's astronomical and outspent. If you look at the numbers, Warnock spent $127 million to Walker's $48 million. That doesn't include the outside groups. It doesn't include the RNC, DNC, and the Senate groups, campaign groups. This is the campaigns themselves. The money going in on the Democratic side was unbelievable. And if you talk to anybody in Georgia, they say they would like to get their commercials back. But we don't know how this race is going to go yet. But it is looking better for Democrats because the county's still out there, Sean. Because the counties that are outstanding with the greater percentage of the vote coming in, and they happen to be large counties, so that vote number will be pretty high. Do you think of the Republican Party, just objectively as you analyze it, they seem to have rejected early voting, voting by mail in large numbers. They start Election Day down by a lot of votes. I've been asking everybody else your thoughts on that. I think it's a problem, and one that you're starting to hear a lot of Republican leaders say has to be dealt with before the next election. One where the mindset has to change over the last 2 cycles in order to compete on the early vote. If you think about a third of a vote being banked before an election starts, and Republicans are trying to drive the vote out on Election Day, a lot of things can happen. Somebody could get tired. Somebody says they don't want to go to the polls. Somebody is just fed up with the commercials. If they vote early and get the ballot in, there's been a lot of success on the Democratic side, and to their credit, the Stacey Abrams and the organizers have figured out a way in Georgia and Arizona and Pennsylvania and Michigan to do that. Now, Florida this time, Sean, showed that Republicans can turn out early. They can turn out absentee and mail-in and on day of. They changed the way they vote in Florida. As you know, they changed the law in Georgia as well.
Well, I think you're right about Florida, and I think there's a lesson to be learned there. We discussed that with Marco Rubio earlier tonight. But if you start election night and you're down a number of votes, a couple of 100,000 even in this case, on election day, November 8th, Raphael Warnock had banked over 250,000 more votes than Herschel Walker. On election day, Herschel had 230,000 more votes that day. And that got us to where we are tonight with this runoff. But Brett Baer, special report, thank you for being with us. All right, that is all the time, unfortunately, we have this evening. As always, thank you for being with us. Stay with the Fox News channel, continuing coverage of the Georgia runoff, or go to foxnews.com. And in the meantime, let not your heart be troubled. Laura Ingraham takes it from here with the Ingraham Angle. We'll see you tomorrow night.
I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle from Washington tonight. Now, polls have been closed in the Georgia Senate runoff for 3 hours. And with nearly 85% of the vote in, we have a very, very tight race. The lead has been kind of bouncing back and forth between Herschel Walker and incumbent Raphael Warnock, with neither man leading by more than 1 point in the last hour or so. Now, out of more than 3 million votes, the two men are separated now by just about 7,000. Bill Hemmer joins us live at the billboard with the latest. Bill, what can you tell us?
Hey, Laura, quickly here on the map, just like you said it, right? Warnock got 0.2% lead here, difference of 7,000 raw votes between the two. And the vote tally is getting a little higher, now up to around 84% of all of the votes counted now, of the estimated vote that's in. Warnock continues to draw raw numbers out of these metro Atlanta areas that have a lot of votes, right? That's Fulton County. You know, population 1 out of 159, right? 65% of the vote counted. So Warnock's going to get a few more votes in there as well. Gwinnett, 2 out of 159. There's about 25% of the vote outstanding there as well. Come over here in Cobb County. Laura, this number really hasn't moved now for some time. You're at 63% of the estimated vote that is in Cobb County. So we're going to see that change a little bit as well. You ask yourself, where's the vote? Where is it outstanding? Where's it going to come from, right? So here is our current map. If you see purple on this map, Laura, you know there's vote to be counted. If you see shades of pink, there's a little bit of vote out there, too. If you see gray, that means all the county is checked in. If you look at this now, this is northern Georgia here in the Atlanta area where there's all kinds of different shades of pinks and rosés and, I mean, you name it. You know, there's some votes still to be had out there in northern Georgia. Also down here in the Savannah area, this has been a similar story as well. So come back to real time now. Let's go ahead and dive in on some of these areas here. Where Walker's from Chatham County are at 81% now, okay? The percentage here, not quite 2-to-1, Warnock on Walker. Let's see where they were here 4 weeks ago during the midterm, okay? Warnock, not quite as high, right? Shy of 60%. And tonight, he's a little bit over that mark, but again, there's more vote to be counted. We'll see whether or not that stays at 60%. Above or below there in Savannah. I was just checking a few areas here in these northern metro counties. Cherokee County, Republican area now. Walker's just shy of 69%. I'm going to do something for you, Laura. I'm going to go through 3 counties in a row. They favor Republicans traditionally. We'll look at what the percentage is right now for Walker and what it was 4 weeks ago. Okay, so here we go. That's Cherokee tonight, 68.8. 4 weeks ago, he was at okay, so a little better for Walker in Cherokee County. Come back to real time tonight. I'll flip over here to Forsyth County. Walker tonight, 65%. Where was he 4 weeks ago? He was at just shy of 65%. The vote, however, is not all in on Forsyth. Do it one more time here. This is Hall County. Republican votes, population rank 10 out of 159. All right, Walker just shy of 73%. Just about all the vote being estimated tallied here in Hall County. All right, you see the difference for Walker? It was just shy of 71% 4 weeks ago. So in these counties, he's doing slightly better than where he was 4 weeks ago, which is where you want to be for Walker, okay? What we can't see, however, is what Warnock is doing, okay? It's Fulton County. It's only 2/3 of the vote in. Warnock is going to get a ton of votes in Fulton County. 4 weeks ago, where was he? Well, he was down about 8 points, so Walker's going to gain a little bit there. But is that enough to hang on? I mean, this is the fundamental question of this runoff race tonight. Similar story in Gwinnett. Okay, now this changed. Hang on, Laura. Just a moment ago. So that's 99% reporting in Gwinnett County. A lot of Democratic votes northeast of Atlanta, as you well know, in the greater Atlanta area. Check that. You're at 92%. Got it. Okay, my mistake. In real time now, that number's not 99, it's 92. So you've got a fair amount of votes in right now, okay, but you're not entirely checked in. Warnock's at 62. 4 weeks ago, all right, is it 58, just shy of 59%? We'll watch how that goes. In Cobb County, 3 out of 159. Warnock shy of 60%. This is a change, Laura, now. That had been stuck on 53% for some time. Then it got stuck at 63%. So this is a recent dump now in Cobb County. And I'll just go back 4 weeks ago to find out how Warnock's doing. Okay, all right. So a little bit of a difference there from 4 weeks ago is where he is tonight. You know, look, if Warnock hangs on to a 2 or 3 point edge in a place like Cobb County, that might be enough to win the entire state. Based on raw numbers. So it's changing in real time. But just so you know, Laura, right now, your difference is 6,900 votes, and Warnock is hanging on to a 0.2 of a percentage point over Herschel Walker. Horse race, you got it, Laura. Back to you.
Great to see you, Bill. Thanks so much. We're going to check back with you in just a short while. But now, how low will they go? That's the focus of tonight's angle. Just how far will the left actually go to protect their pet causes and their destructive agenda? Well, we've already seen that to save their fantasy of a borderless nation, they'll look the other way as an endless stream of indigence, of narcotics and crime wreaks havoc on middle America. The White House just isn't interested at all in the problem at the border. They're actively rooting for the illegals. The more the better, in fact, especially if they end up moving into communities where Republicans have been making political inroads. Now, today, Biden was just 100 miles or so from the Arizona border, but he's too much of a coward to travel there to face the reality of what his administration has done.
Why go to a border state and not visit the border?
Because there's more important thing going on. They're going to invest billions of dollars in a new enterprise.
Well, more important than the sovereignty of your nation? Sure. Now, the Democrats have sunk just as low in the pursuit of a carbon-free, control-heavy world. Efforts to cripple the fossil fuel industry have driven fossil fuel profits up, in the short term at least, while leaving America vulnerable in the position of a beggar to the world's dictators. China's just laughing at us as we unilaterally disarm in the world of energy. And again, Democrats just don't care. The Americans hurt by high prices for food, fuel, pretty much everything. Future generations left holding the bag because of all of this runaway green spending. And the entire world hurt by our funding this proxy war against Russia. And that tops it all off. All of this is happening, and the Democrats don't care.
What is the Granholm plan to increase oil production in America?
Oh my God, that is hilarious. Would that I had the magic wand on this.
We're in a transition, and transitions are complicated. We need to manage this transition in a smart way.
Tell us, Pete. Now, you couldn't write a better plan to collapse America if you tried. And they're taking a scorched earth approach on the trans agenda as well. As we know, the destruction of the nuclear family is one of their premier agenda items.
Do you think states should have a right to ban gender-affirming health care?
I don't think any state or anybody should have the right to do that. As a moral question and as a legal question. I just think it's wrong.
As a pediatrician, when it comes to making sure kids are healthy and happy, I know how important care that affirms someone's true identity can be.
Transgender youth should be allowed to be able to go to school freely, to be able to express themselves freely.
Well, in one Northern Virginia suburb, a trans youth expressing himself, well, went beyond using the restroom of the opposite sex. It meant committing a heinous crime. That radical gender and racial activists have so co-opted the Democrat Party that school administrators in Loudoun County, Virginia, literally covered up a sexual assault. Now, you probably recall some of the details of how that school district there tried to bury the story of a rape of a female student. They moved her assailant to another school without parents' knowledge, and then when the victim's father expressed his understandable outrage at a school board meeting, they turned him into the villain. Well, now the grand jury convened in the matter just released a report detailing what the school administrators did to sweep things under the rug. And it's much worse than we thought. According to the report, a teacher's aide walked into the bathroom and, despite seeing 2 pairs of feet under the stall door, this is during the rape itself, that teacher did nothing and apparently alerted no one. The report also found that the district concealed the nature of the attack even as it was preparing to release a controversial new transgender bathroom policy. After the rape, the student was transferred to another school where he committed other egregious acts of misconduct against girls that were known to officials but kept from the public. Now, even the rapist's own grandmother told officials that he was a sociopath. But little was done. Predictably, the student rapist, remember at the time he supposedly was wearing a skirt, went on to commit another sexual assault, this time in a classroom. Now, when he learned of the anal rape of his daughter by a boy, again in trans dress-up, Scott Smith, the father of the victim, rushed to the school, but was initially blocked from entering. He eventually gained access, but was escorted out of the building. The principal contacted the superintendent's office about getting a no trespassing letter against the victim's father. The grand jury reveals that while all this was happening, the rapist remained missing and at large. Get your mind wrapped around this for a second. The school was more concerned about containing an angry dad than finding a rapist on the loose. Listen, we have to understand that the left has changed. We kind of used to believe in the 80s, maybe 70s, that they were relativists who didn't believe in absolute truths. But now we face an aggressive, moralizing left that will pursue its goals, whatever the cost to Americans. And they're going to do this with the help, and they're doing it with the help of a consortium of big business, teachers' unions, woke bureaucrats, Hollywood, and a supportive media. They're convinced that you're the problem. You're the ones that need to be punished. People like this.
Parents, school personnel are required to rubber stamp your child's transgender identity at school without your knowledge or consent.
My oldest child will be starting middle school in the fall. Where is her protection if a biological male is staring at her as she changes her clothes in the locker room?
Focus on raising our rock-bottom test scores and do away with exposing minors to sexually explicit material.
Where is the math? Where is the reading? Where is the history? Where are the strong values?
Strong values? Well, the left's enforcers certainly have them. But those values are diametrically and at times demonically opposed to what most families want for their children and for the country. For years, the left was emboldened to inflict this twisted agenda on our children, frankly, because parents and politicians were pretty much asleep at the wheel. But the good news is we're waking up. And in Loudoun County, brave parents were not afraid. They stood up and they spoke up, even as they were compared to domestic terrorists by the DOJ. If those parents hadn't had the guts to get involved, none of these disturbing facts would have come to light. And that young female student would have been, in a sense, victimized all over again. So much for the Democrats and girl power. The sooner Americans realize how hostile the left has become to normal American life, the sooner we can begin to win the type of political victories that we need to stop this agenda. And that's the angle. All right, joining me now is a reporter who broke this story, Luke Rosiak, investigative reporter for the Daily Wire. He's also the author of Race to the Bottom, uncovering the secret forces destroying American public education. Luke, now you've noted that the grand jury report found that the superintendent's concealment was so extensive that the school board didn't even know about it until you broke the story. What?
Yeah, that was pretty wild. I broke this story a little over a year ago, and now this jury of 9 citizens in Loudoun County has found facts that I couldn't get because they used subpoenas. They used compelled testimony. Now, the school board members would not testify until they were within 2 hours of being arrested. But they got documents, they did get that testimony, and what we find is that there was a series of failures, continuing failures, including just days before the rape, a teacher's aide emailed her boss that she did not want to be held responsible if anyone gets hurt because of this kid. Now her boss said, "I question your motives," implying that the teacher that complained was transphobic. And so they did nothing to the kid.
So they're afraid. So they want the teachers to be afraid. They want administrators who don't agree with this agenda afraid, and they want the parents afraid. They want everybody afraid.
That's right. And so they left this kid in school. They did nothing to him. And just days later, he raped. After that, he's charged. He's wearing an ankle bracelet. They just transfer him to a different school. And again, the grand jury found a series of additional instances of this guy being creepy with girls.
Is there a massive lawsuit involving the parents of this girl right now, right?
I think we're going to see that with Scott Smith. Yeah, there could be a lot of money on the table.
Oh, my God. Well, Luke, I want to read you a portion of this grand jury report. When you reached out to Loudoun County Schools for a statement to confirm or dispute any of the facts, Wade Byer, our Loudoun County School Public Information Officer, sent it to his colleagues and said, "I believe this should receive immediate attention." Now, this was months after the assault. He seemed concerned that the story was about to get national attention. That is all that mattered to them, not this young woman, not the fact that other young women and other students were vulnerable at these other schools. It was the PR that they didn't want, the bad PR.
That's one of the things that's shocking. There was an email that went out after the first rape that said the only thing that happened at school today was an unruly parent, and that's why you saw police on campus. Now, if you need counseling from having to see the police, we'll offer you counseling. But there was no threat to the safety of students. And we find out, as you mentioned, the rapist was on the loose that entire time while they were seeking a restraining order against the father. Now, that email was the father of the victim. That email was
which was a biological male, of course, the rapist. These school board members were quick to claim that he was instead wearing a kilt. Scott, they just don't stop playing politics here.
No, they don't. They just lie, lie, lie. I mean, I can show you the picture of what he looked like that day. It's on my phone right now in my pocket. There was no kilt about it.
Was he always dressed this way? Was this just a way to get in the bathroom that moment? Do we know?
I think he decided who he was and what he was on a daily basis. You know, I've seen evidence since that, unfortunately, you know, my wife and I, you know, we fought very hard, you know, to get this child treatment. And then, you know, evidence was revealed to us after the fact that, you know, this kid's a psychopath. He's a sexual predator. Unfortunately, we're going to hear about him again.
Ian Ziegler, the superintendent, why is he still in this position?
Well,
why is he still there?
That's a great question. And, you know, after reading that grand
We need
jury,
names. Everyone in this case has a name, by the way, and a face. So.
I mean, after reading that grand jury report, I don't know how the school board cannot fire him. I mean, what are they afraid of? Does he have something on them that maybe wasn't disclosed to the grand jury that he's going to go talk about if they fire him? But I will say tonight, the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors met, and the chairwoman of the Board of Supervisors, a Democrat, repeatedly called for the school board to fire Scott Ziegler. She said he needs to be fired tonight. This is not a political issue. This is not Democrat, Republican. He and his senior staff need to go.
I mean, the fact that this has gone on for as long as it has is mind-blowing. I mean, people have been watching our coverage of this for now over a year. Scott, you told your story. I wanted to just bawl crying. I was so upset by it. And you as a parent, first of all, I want to thank you for your bravery, for speaking out and being as tough as you've been. And Ian, you've just done such amazing work on this. All the parents, but thank you for you and your family for standing strong. And I hope you have a good plaintiff's lawyer, because this is a major litigation which should follow here. Speaking as a former lawyer. All right, we thank you both for joining us. I appreciate it. Now we need to head back to Georgia, where this race continues to go back and forth. We're basically in a dead heat with 92% of the vote in. So we head back to Bill Hemmer, who's standing by for us. Bill, looks like Warnock just got a favorable dump of votes. How shocking. What can you tell us?
Well, I tell you, he's got a 0.8 percentage point lead here, right? Raw vote is 26,000. 4 weeks ago, same race, Same two candidates. It was a difference of 0.9% and 36,000 from 4 weeks ago. So where's the vote? What are we waiting on? Just really a handful of counties. Some of them are rural where you don't have a ton of votes out there, and some of them are big major cities in Atlanta, major counties. You see what we've done on the map here. You see any pink shades out there? Shades of rosé? That shows you where the vote is still outstanding. Most of it's in. I only counted a moment ago, Laura. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 10 counties in total where we're waiting on votes. So the darker the pink or the red or the purple in this case, the more outstanding. This Appling County, it's a rural county, 97 out of 159. So you got about half of the vote in, waiting on a little more there. In Appling County. I'll come up here to the northern area here. This is Cherokee County, a lot of Republican votes. You're at 98% reporting. So you got a few more outstanding in Cherokee. Let me just pop around here in Lumpkin County, up here in Habersham County, up around the South Carolina border there. So you're at 94%, so a little bit outstanding there. Which could play into Walker's favor. You pick up a couple hundred votes here, a couple thousand votes here. That could work for him. The problem he's up against, however, is two of the main counties and two of the biggest vote getters where you find Democratic votes are Fulton County and, well, here's Fulton County right here. You're about 3/4 reporting at 77%. Warnock with almost 70. Okay, so where was he 4 weeks ago? Can I do that? Hang with me, Laura. He was 73%, all right? So maybe there's a chance there that Walker could pick up a little bit here. But come over here just to the east. DeKalb, and watching this all night, is 4 out of 159. You're just at 70% of the vote in. This has been a slower count than some of the other counties for DeKalb, but you see it continue to come in. You see how much of a Democratic advantage you have in a county like DeKalb when you're 90% of the vote just on just northeast of Atlanta, Georgia. I'll take this off here and go back. So this is 4 weeks ago in DeKalb. All right, so Warnock, he's outperforming at the moment, but whether or not this was all the votes counted 4 weeks ago. As of now, you're at 90%. Does that number stick? If it does, the race is over. But in all likelihood, it won't. Walker will gain a few points there. Sorry, a few votes there. But I don't know if that's going to be enough in order to Walker sustain this, okay? So you're at 29,000. What we just came on the air here a moment ago. You're still sticking at 0.8%. This is kind of the part of the night where things slow down a little bit. And Laura, well, I got you. So none of these counties have changed. They're all the same shade that we talked a moment ago. And that is where we are, shy of 30,000 votes at the 93% marker and 0.8%.
Bill, I have a question. This might be a dumb question, but why is it that the heavily Democratic counties are always the last ones to report? I mean, presumably they count, and there are numbers, and they count. There are more people, obviously, but it seems like it kind of, I hate to say this is just a familiar refrain, but it's a very familiar refrain to us from election night past to just the midterms, et cetera.
Well, I'm going to say that's where you find the people. That's where they live. And Laura, right now, we're relying on the Associated Press to give us these numbers. And right now, the Associated Press has just given the check mark to Raphael Warnock. He's going back to the U.S. Senate as the winner of this runoff against Herschel Walker, right now at 50.4% to Walker's 49.6%. Raphael Warnock has won the runoff in Georgia 4 weeks after we held the midterms in 2022, which in effect, Laura, gives you the balance of power now in the Senate. Democrats at 51, Republicans at 49, majority's 51, and that's where the Democrats have reached. This means essentially that Kamala Harris will not have to break any tie-breaking votes. This means, in effect, that on the committee votes, when you have legislation that's on the margins, Democrats and Joe Biden will have a slight edge after this victory tonight.
Bill Hammer, I'd like to say this is surprising, but it's not. This is what we expected, and look, the Senate Democrats, I would argue, did a much better job, and they got the early vote out, and Brian Kemp gave his list and did a late-night kind of video call, but, I mean, you got to have the operation in effect, as always. Guys, we appreciate it. Bill, stay with us. All right, we have more. All right, we're not going to more. We got to go to Molly Hemingway. Sorry, I have a whole script in front of me. Molly Hemingway, and of course, Kellyanne Conway. Molly, you and I talked about this about a week ago. We felt this coming. To me, it never felt like the Senate Republicans wanted this guy in office. He was a Trump pick. They didn't like that. They probably like him as a person, Herschel as a person. But there wasn't the intensity on the part of the Republicans as there was on the part of the Democrats. I felt it. You felt it. But we don't change anything. We have the same people in place in leadership, same people in place apparently at the RNC. Perhaps that's not changing. We just keep doing the same thing over and over again. I'm pissed tonight, frankly. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's really offensive.
I'm mad.
For Republican voters, for Republican donors who have put so much into having some wins, and they just see kind of failure across the board. There aren't people who are working on early voting or banking ballots. There's no clear messaging. I mean, you look at what happened since the midterm elections, where you had a Senate that basically responded to those disappointing midterm losses by doing nothing other than sabotaging their own base. What is the case for voting Republican for the Senate after these midterms? I don't think one was even attempted to be made. And yeah, nothing seems to be changing. But you didn't see a lot of enthusiasm down there. Of course, the spending was completely
3-1.
It was just.
Look at how close it was, though. I mean, in the end, what did we say? This was winnable, Kellyanne. I know you don't want any change. You want Ronna McDaniel. I like Ronna McDaniel. Isn't this like a warning sign flashing, or are we just going to keep doing the same thing all over again every single election?
Well,
Kevin McCarthy won the House. He won the House.
Yes, he did. And we were outspent 3-1 here.
Why?
There's no excuse in Georgia for us not to have done what Brian Kemp did. Yes, he's the incumbent governor. He's very popular. He's running against Stacey Abrams. But he turned out over his micro-targeting plan, his grassroots people, and I guess Mitch McConnell's group funded it. But they did that in the last couple of days.
He funded it?
Done 4 weeks ago.
Did Mitch McConnell appear down there?
We could have won that seat outright 4 weeks ago. We wouldn't even had to have a runoff. Herschel Walker could have won. I think he was one of the most improved candidates of the cycle. We had some duds of candidates this time. He was out there working hard, but we need to not just compete for votes, for ballots. We need to compete for ballots. If we don't bank ballots early, we're going to keep losing.
But we didn't.
But we didn't.
But we didn't do it in 2020 because everyone said don't vote early because that's corrupt.
Not everyone.
Well,
Yes,
a lot of people did at the very top of the Republican Party.
Yes,
you didn't.
People did.
But Molly, Mitch McConnell did give $11 million to the effort. That's $14 million to the effort in Georgia. But where was the all hands on deck? You got Lindsey Graham. He was there. He did a lot.
Every senator should have been there. Every female senator should have been there.
But why? I'm going to ask the question tonight. Nobody wants to talk about this. Why weren't they down there, Molly?
I think that if they had needed this seat to have a majority in the Senate, you actually would have seen the establishment in D.C. caring a little bit about it. They obviously didn't care about it once it wouldn't have mattered there. But also there's an issue of people talk about giving money to different races. We're very good at seeing how money can go around to different people. The Republican Party gives money to consultants. They need to care more about winning and less about the means by which races are run. Regardless of who takes over the RNC or regardless if Ronna continues, there need to be massive systematic changes to the whole way that races are being handled, the consultants who are running them.
Well, the consultants who get paid
for decades.
and paid
Regardless
and
of
paid.
outcome. Regardless of outcome, they do.
Pollsters,
It's called
lobbyists,
infection.
Consultants. These people are the only growth industry left in Washington, D.C., frankly.
Well, I like to say, I've been talking about this for years. They're walking, I put it in my book. They're a walking RICO violation, staph infection. Candidates often lose, consultants always win, and they're nameless, by the way. Most of the consultants who make the most money and have for decades, Laura, the losing Romney race was $1 billion, and they're all still
strategies,
around.
those are some
They're still
rich
around.
people.
But guess what? Nobody even knows who they are. In other words, the average donor, average Laura Ingraham viewer right now can't name those people the way they can name Molly and me.
Maybe they should be named.
But by the way, they are nameless, but they are not blameless.
But the Republicans hire them.
Shameless.
These people have been recycled from campaign to campaign to campaign, but there's no accountability.
But they're going to blame Herschel Walker tonight. They're going to blame Donald Trump. And I just want some facts laid out here. I know Mitch McConnell early on said he wanted David Perdue or Kelly Loeffler to run against Raphael Warnock.
Doug Collins would have been a
They said that.
fantastic
They said that, from the beginning. But Mitch McConnell endorsed Herschel a long time ago. Like, this didn't happen yesterday. Everybody said they were all in, but we didn't see all the senators there. Where were the other 49 Republican senators?
Why? I don't believe it's just because it's 49-51.
Well, I
that
don't
vote
believe that
mattered.
either. Nobody wants Kamala Harris to be breaking
That
ties.
vote
The only
mattered,
thing
Molly.
she ever does is break ties. It's the only progress she's ever made.
But
That
again,
doesn't even matter.
the-
This is Georgia. We should be winning Georgia.
We're about to see a cram down of this omnibus bill, perhaps, meaning the Senate leadership would rather work with Schumer than have a chance to work with Kevin
They need to
McCarthy
wait.
in the new year. That speaks volumes, Molly. I know you guys have written about it over at the Federalist.
Well, and talking again about the role that Mitch McConnell plays here. Mitch McConnell loved those candidates 2 years ago. They also lost. And
So did the Colorado nominee.
We have an issue where the Republican Party needs to think about how it's winning elections, and it is not thinking about that at all. And it talks about candidate quality. Mitch McConnell sabotaged Republican candidates and the voters who picked them by saying that the candidates were bad. Well, we have now in the Senate a plan for Republicans to help Chuck Schumer with massive spending package. They're doing nothing to stop it. What about the candidate quality of these current senators who don't care about their base, who don't care about the direction of the country, and are more than happy to work with Democrats than wait?
Always.
Yes,
Always. Now, I want to play this moment from last night with Kevin McCarthy on the show. He had a piece of advice for Mitch McConnell. We give enormous credit for, by the way, for all the judicial nominees he's pushed through for all the years. Huge credit for that. But when it comes to this omnibus issue, watch this.
We're 28 days away from Republicans having the gavel. We would be stronger in every negotiation. So any Republican that's out there trying to work with them is wrong.
So that
Why
includes
wouldn't you
Mitch
wait with the
McConnell?
hand
Does
is
that include
stronger?
McConnell?
Yes. Why would you want to work on anything if we have the gavel inside Congress?
You just
we
won
have a
the
stronger.
House.
Yes. Wait till we're in charge.
In the Hill today, all these unnamed sources among the Senate senior leadership and friends of the minority leader, well, we didn't think Kevin McCarthy was going to be able to get anything through. So they never go on the record. They never defend the merits of their position. It's always unnamed sources. They never give real interviews about why this omnibus is the right way to go. Never will hear from them.
The true leakers in Washington. I thought your interview with Leader McCarthy was masterful last night, and I thought his answer was perfect. Basically, they've been waiting for 4 years to get the majority back. You can wait another month, everybody. You waited 4 years, you could wait 4 weeks. And his whole point was, wait for us because we actually are going to be in the majority in the House. And Laura, they have no room for excuses and no reason to not work on the border, energy, economy.
They don't want it.
President of the United States. Yeah, but Kevin does.
They don't want it. No, Kevin does.
Oh, you mean absolutely? But he invited Joe Biden to the border. That's not a stunt. Joe Biden knows what's going on at the border. He doesn't care. He has been to Delaware 174 days. He's been to the border 0 days, including today. I mean, think about this: 174 to nothing. That's a fact, everybody. So, and we know fentanyl is the #1 killer and the rest of it. So I think telling Mitch McConnell, especially after tonight, when you clearly don't even have a 50-50 Senate. I mean, it's like, just wait for us over here in the House.
What does
who
it say
actually
for
have the gavels.
2024? If this is what the Republican voters see, what does that tell them going into 2024? With all we have a lot of great Senate races coming up in our favor. Is this the way to build that new coalition of Hispanics? This?
I can't imagine how demoralizing this is. And it does also get back to these policy issues like, if you provide any resistance to what's happening with Democrat control of the Senate, if you work with the new Republican majority in Congress, you can actually generate excitement and enthusiasm for 2 years from now. When Democrats take over, they come up with like really extreme policy proposals like packing the Supreme Court, ending the filibuster. It's not even that these things are going to happen, but it's a way of like moving things in their direction. They act bold no matter how small their majority. Republicans, on the other hand, seem to just accept defeat even when they have won. They are worried about pushing anything, and then it has electoral consequences.
Well, the good news is we are increasing among these key groups: Hispanics, indisputably, African Americans, Asian Americans, suburban white women came through for Republicans. We won the national vote, but we really ran up the totals in some of these rural districts. Instead of winning with 52, we won with 60.
Got to win the cities. We got to make inroads in the cities.
And look, but we won in Oregon, Virginia, New Jersey, New York.
There's good news in the
House,
House, no doubt.
So we have to build on those coalitions. But Laura, I hate to say, we have to invest in the non-sexy parts of politics. The ballot access. You got to bank those early votes. Why are we taking a chance Grandpa can get out of the bathroom that day, let alone the House, to vote? Get his vote a month in advance.
Early voting, baby.
Why are we
That's
waiting
it.
for that?
Molly, your reaction to the Matt Taibbi Twitter stream on what was going on with big tech this election.
So just amazing.
Jim Baker and the Jim Baker angle, obviously, at Twitter.
So James Baker was at the FBI. He was implicated in the Russia collusion hoax. He left as they were investigating some of the leaks that were happening there. He gets hired at Twitter, and we learned today that he was meddling in the dissemination of these explosive communications about how Twitter meddled in the 2020 election by suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop story. And it's just amazing because he was supposed to be general counsel for Twitter, and yet he was actively working against Twitter and apparently on behalf of himself and the FBI. This is the type of thing that could lead to disbarment, and it is, I just want to say, Elon Musk got rid of James Baker, which is more than most Republicans did in the entire Russia collusion hoax.
That's right. Bingo. Ladies, couldn't think of two better people to have on tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And speaking of the suppression efforts about the First Family's corruption, Tucker Carlson joins us next to preview his two-part Fox Nation series on the Biden family grift, and it is good. Stay there. And now for new details about these pernicious ties between big tech and big government, I'm so happy we're joined by Tucker Carlson, the host of Tucker Carlson Tonight and Tucker Carlson Originals on Fox Nation. Now, part one of his latest two-part series, Biden Inc., is available right now on Fox Nation. And we got our hands on an exclusive sneak peek.
Want to know how corrupt a country is? Take a look at how its leaders live. Do the people in charge always wind up richer than they were before they took office? Do they live in sprawling compounds surrounded by armed guards? Does the average senator, for example, live in the same zip code as the people who vote for him? Places like Scranton, Pennsylvania? If not, you've got corruption. During his 5 decades as a public servant, Joe Biden and his family became rich, and they enriched themselves at the country they supposedly served. How did they do that exactly? Well, we obtained thousands of documents, text messages, emails, and recorded calls that tell the story, that illustrate how America's first family really does business. This is Biden Inc.
Now, Tucker, like the Twitter revelations we discussed in that previous block, there's this stunning lack of curiosity about everything the Biden family has done to enrich itself. Why is that?
Well, and it's long-standing. It's 50 years of ignoring how Joe Biden lived in this sprawling estate in Greenville, Delaware, owned by a former member of the DuPont family on a government salary with no other income. Like, how did you do that exactly? Then he moved to an even bigger place. And then he bought, a place on the shore, on the eastern shore in Rehoboth. And then when he left the VP's house, he moved into one of the biggest houses on the Potomac River in McLean, Virginia. Like, who financed all of this? And of course, nobody asked those questions. And by the way, Joe Biden's not the only member of Congress to get rich from so-called public service, but he's certainly the most obvious example. And we learned on the laptop, of course, one of the ways he got rich was by sharing a bank account with his son, who was selling access to his father as the vice president of the United States to Ukraine and China. This seems like one of the biggest stories of the past decade, and I don't think it's even been covered by the biggest newspapers in the country, which really does tell you everything.
Well, they try to distract from the underlying narrative, which is the Bidens have become wildly wealthy, trading off Joe Biden's position in government by just say, oh, well, you're picking on someone who's gotten through a terrible addiction problem. Well, just because he's had personal problems, you're now piling on. So they go to the salacious details, which kind of get they're titillating. They go to the salacious details, but those aren't really the point here, are they? I mean, they're kind of interesting, but that's not the core of what's going on.
I mean, it's immaterial. It's actually sad. I mean, I knew Hunter Biden. I always kind of liked Hunter Biden, and it's sad to see him totally disintegrate as a person, hurt other people, and behave as he did, like an animal. But that's definitely not the story. The story is how this family of people with no obvious skills or expertise in any area, energy, for example, they don't know anything about energy, like literally nothing, and they're making millions from a Ukrainian energy company? Like, how did that happen? And no one's even asked. And by the way, I would say most Americans at this point would trade a little bit of corruption, they would tolerate a little bit of corruption for some competence and stability. The most galling part of all of this is not Mayor Daley in Chicago in 1965, who at least was plowing the snow. These are people who are demonstrably terrible at running the U.S. government. They're not good at it. still getting rich by selling access to our government, to our main enemy, China? I mean, it's too much.
Tucker, though, this corruption of the Biden family, though, of course, it doesn't have any effect on whether he's going to seek re-election. No, right. Because according to the New York Times, Jill Biden told President Emmanuel Macron at the White House state dinner last week that she and her husband are ready for his re-election campaign. And then Biden then joined the French president and first lady in a playful toast. Now, that could have all been just sound and fury signifying nothing, but I think they're going to go for it.
They may. I mean, I've been consistently surprised. I confidently predicted on television like 8 times that Joe Biden would not actually see his bid for the Democratic nomination through, because I knew that his family members were aware that he had dementia, that he was taking drugs in order to mask the symptoms of dementia. He was totally incapable of serving as president. So I never thought that he would get the nomination, much less get to become the president of the United States. So, like, I'm out of the prediction business on this. It's a pretty good deal for the people who are actually running the government, Barack Obama and Susan Rice, et cetera, because there's no one in the way.
Tucker, is there a way for a populist kind of, whatever you want to call it, America First, America Focused candidate to really win on the national stage if Republicans don't get this big tech under control by breaking this crazy monopoly on speech that they have, and by getting early voting mastered at the outset of these elections? Is it possible for them to win national office given the electoral makeup?
Well, no, of course. And, some of the voting stuff is a question of mechanics. If we have this new system, Republicans, if they want to be in the politics business, need to master it. That's obvious. But on the question of the control that tech has over people's minds, not only will Republicans not get elected if that continues, we won't have a democracy. You can't have a democracy in a country in which information is centrally controlled because people don't have the information necessary to make informed decisions. So, this is the actual threat to democracy when the FBI tells a tech company to hide information from voters 3 weeks before an election. That's not a democracy. It's less than a democracy, obviously.
Yeah, they talked about Russia collusion. What kind of collusion is this? This is within our own government. Tucker, it's great to see you. I saw you at the Fox Nation Awards, Patriot Awards. Great to see you tonight. And we look forward to part 2. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Now, up next, minutes after our A Block segment ended, we got some breaking news about that superintendent at the center of this Loudoun County school rape concealment. Plus, Brett Baer is here, and he's on set on how the White House is already using Warnock's win in Georgia to prop up Biden in 2024. Stay there. This is a Fox News alert. According to Loudoun Now, Superintendent Scott Ziegler was just fired immediately and without cause after that damning grand jury report detailed how he and others went to great lengths to conceal student rapes. Yet again, well, I like to believe the Ingram angle had some positive effect here and got results. Now, the White House is celebrating tonight. Ron Klain congratulating not just Warnock in Georgia, but his boss, Joe Biden. Joining me now is the anchor and executive editor of Special Report, Brett Baer. Brett, we mentioned with Tucker that they're already telling foreign governments that they're running for 2024, Biden and Jill. And they're definitely trying to set the narrative here. He's a winner.
Yeah, and, it's interesting because he didn't campaign in Georgia. Raphael Warnock didn't mention him that much at all. He was traveling today in Arizona, didn't go to the border, but also didn't go to Georgia on the final day of, the campaign yesterday. It's interesting to watch this race. Raphael Warnock will end up with more votes than he did in the general election. They'll say candidates matter. Herschel Walker evolved as a candidate. He became better on the stump. This is closer than a lot of people thought it was going to be.
Right about.
Because remember, Brian Kemp wasn't on this ticket as opposed to, the last time. So I think Republicans are going to lick their wounds and try to look at early voting and other things that may have gone wrong.
Now, in Fulton County, this kind of tells the tale, Brett, home of course, Atlanta. Kemp lost there, the governor, by 38%. Walker is currently losing by about 58%. That's
you can
telling.
Bounce around Georgia to different counties, and that differential is really what is this race. And I think a couple of things. One is 51-49 is different. You know, Democrats now have control of not only the chamber, but those committees to get the Biden agenda through. So the fact that House Republicans will hold the House is really key.
But the 2024 map, as you said, is pretty unforgiving for the Democrats right now. Tell us about that.
The Senate map is
Senate
unforgiving. It's, you know, you have states like West Virginia, Montana, Ohio, Arizona, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. And so there are a lot of potential states where Republicans, if they choose the right candidate in a primary, are well positioned, because those are states that Donald Trump won significantly, the first 3 by double digits.
It looks like now that Mitch McConnell may, and I say may, be backing off that omnibus bill, which would have dumped, obviously, all the spending for the next 10 months. Decide it now, not wait for Kevin McCarthy. Tell us the backstory there.
Well, there's a lot of pressure. One, because of Defense Department funding, and there's all kinds of push to get everything funded, and you know, what's happening with weapons to Ukraine, the possibility of Taiwan. We just talked about that at the Reagan Defense Forum. So there's pressure on that. But then you have all these senators who are retiring, and there's a little bit of, you know, pet projects in the big funding that they would like to see delivered
legacy building
before they leave. And some of them are longtime figures that have been in the Senate for a long time, and they'd like to see whatever, an airport, a post office, or something, and it's all in that bill. We'll see. House Republicans are going to hold the line. We'll see if Nancy Pelosi has the votes in the House. I think the Senate is going to be really close.
Now, Richard Shelby is 88 years old, and he's retiring, and he's the one in charge of pushing this omnibus through. How does that make sense in any way, shape? It's like a retiring basketball coach doing all the recruiting for the next, you know,
well, it's
5
not
years.
just Shelby. It's also Pat Leahy, who is also leaving the Senate. So both of those guys are the final kind of push.
But they never have to be held accountable because
Right, they're done.
out. So that's kind of an interesting deal. It's so great to be here with you and
Yes.
sit with you at the anchor desk. Brett, thank you so much for your insights tonight. Greg Gutfeld and the gang is here next. But first, Trace Gallagher will provide the latest from Georgia. Good night, everyone.